today as publicly posted properly and on the notice. And we're currently going to go in the same order unless we get some suggestions to do otherwise. And the first thing we'll do is we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. One nation, under God, indivisible. Justice for all. Let's see, so Dave, since we're gonna probably get to you in the first item, are you gonna take the notes?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Great. So we'll do a roll call. So Mike Harmer, I'm present. Let's go this way.
Gail Cook.
Brett Townsend, Town Solicitor.
Dave Lyons.
Jimmy O'Connor. Jack Rutherford.
All right, so officially have a quorum and need a motion to adopt the agenda for today.
So move.
Need a second and discussion. So we have Mama Maria's first, then Grotto's rezone. And then Grotto's new restaurant and then the rezone. So.
Got a motion and a second. You gotta
Yeah, we're having a discussion. Discussion. So we were thinking like we would bump anything up to save money if somebody had an attorney. Is there more than one applicant here how many attorneys are here in the crowd? All right, so we got two different ones. We're just gonna keep it the way it is.
Yeah.
We'll try to go quick because we know billable hours kill you as an owner. All right, so let's take a vote on the agenda. All right, so all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. So unanimously approved the agenda as shown. And then I emailed you guys meeting minutes from the December 18th, 2021 meeting. And I'd like a motion to approve them and in a second. And then if we want to make changes, we'll discuss that. So a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion we approve.
All right.
From December.
Second.
Second, Dale Beach to it, Jack. Discussion? See none, vote to approve them. All in favor, aye? All right, unanimous. And now we'll go on to the item 1, which is discussion amongst us to vote for a secretary who I try to talk somebody into it. So we'll see who that is. So I guess we're looking for a motion to possibly have Dave be our secretary. Anybody willing to make that motion?
So move.
I'll second.
Dale made it, Jimmy seconded it, all in favor?
Thank you.
You're okay with it, right?
Thanks, guys.
All in favor?
I appreciate your compliment. I know you might.
Yeah, sucker. All in favor, aye. All right, awesome. All right. So now we have a formal secretary. Second item, discuss among planning and zoning, the conditional use permit and application for the restaurant permit for Mama Maria's. So there's an ordinance. Basically, what I wanted to say at the beginning of this was that each one of these conditional use applications that's going to be for outside has we're here to make a list of conditions. So let's keep it in perspective. Pretty much it's been operating and, we don't need to go into past histories and all that. Whatever you want to talk about, you can. But basically, I think we need to be consistent as possible. It doesn't mean we have to be, all right? But we suggest that we are. And we treat people as equally and transparent as possible. But sometimes, there's always in engineering, there's always differences amongst sites and et cetera. So we recognize that. But just please keep it in perspective and let's try to move things along if possible. And the way we can do that is if we adopt the first set of conditions, we should probably look at the next ones and decide if we want the same and make it easy on Dave, the secretary, if we say same or whatever. And Fred, we've got to incorporate all this stuff into it. So, you've seen some emails, you've been on a commission except for Jack's new. We've done several of these in the past. Restaurant, we did a restaurant just like Grotto's. We did Grotto's, I've got those conditions right here with us. So when we get to that, we can look at that old application if you want and try to be efficient. And then we got the conditions that we We know that are in the code today for outside stuff. We just did a deck for now a little while ago and all that. So we'll be sort of consistent. I think we're going to be. Just consistency is probably a good thing.
May I,
Yes,
thank you, Mr. Harmer. Ultimately, it's the commissioners who are going to decide whether to approve these outside areas or these expansions of these existing conditional uses. And in theory, you all could recommend that 9 of 10 or 5 of 10 not be approved for expansion at all, given the unique characteristics of the existing uses and what you hear from the public, if anything, about whether this is in the public's interest that these areas be expanded. So your recommendation is not restricted at all by the fact that these outside areas have been temporarily approved under the COVID restriction environment we were in. Okay.
thank you, Fred. We want to recognize each of these places has neighbors and they probably want their areas to be nice and quiet and clean and all that stuff. But anyway, there's great days ahead for economic development here in Dewey Beach. We've got a pizza place Grotto's getting ready to invest. Others are investing. So this is good stuff, but we want to definitely protect our town for years to come and make sure people continually want to come back. That's all I'll say myself. Does anybody have, and then Mama Maria's to me is just another one of those. And we'll talk about conditions. We'll get into the public hearing and we'll close it and then we'll list our conditions. Anybody want to talk about Mama Maria's before we get into the public hearing?
Just have one point, a question or a point of order. There were just a couple of public comments. One was kind of related to generally all of them. I can either hold it for Mama Maria's, we can just have it at that.
Why don't you say what they are now?
Okay, right, just say.
Yeah.
Okay, so the email came in from David Moskowitz, basically referencing two pieces in our code, 185-25D 1A1 and 185-25D 1A3. As his suggestion is that we make those part of the conditional use. It is in our code, but in the spirit of keeping things consistent for everyone, his suggestion asked us to review those items as we go ahead and review these different applications. So
Yeah, I forwarded those emails to the planning and zoning commissioners and, you probably had a chance to look at them, but you might not have. And,
So would it make sense for us to read those restrictions right now, just to remind everybody what it is he's referring to?
Yeah.
all right,
do you-
go ahead, Dave, you want to do it?
do you have them? Do you have?
So
do you have them
you said 185-25 D1 what?
A1.
A1.
1A, is it?
It's actually D1A1.
Yes, okay.
And then what was the second provision?
185-25 1A3.
25D, 1A.
Okay, I think I know what's meant. So 185-25 D1A1 reads as follows: restaurant with or without an ABCC license, provided that, and this is a list of conditions that applies to an area enclosed or open air, and it's defined by one of the following categories. So the first category is a restaurant with or without an ABCC license. Seated dining for 35 or more patrons must be provided. A minimum of 80% of the patron area exclusive of kitchens, storage areas, offices, outside service areas, restrooms must be permanently committed to seated dining, and said seated areas may not be altered, moved, or removed. A maximum of 20% of the patron area exclusive of kitchens, storage areas, offices, outside service areas, and restrooms may be designated as bar area where seated and stand-up consumption of alcoholic beverages by patrons is permitted. The area designated for seated food service, alcoholic beverages shall only be served to dining patrons. No stand-up consumption of alcoholic beverages in the area designated for seated food service is permitted. All tables and chairs shall be maintained in the configuration shown in the approved conditional use application. If the bar area is separated from the dining area by walls or partitions, the number of patrons in the bar area cannot exceed the fire marshal's occupancy limit for that area. Kitchen facilities shall be under the direction of a chef or cook. Restaurants conforming to the subsection shall be permitted to apply for a conditional use permit for an outside service area. What we're doing here, restaurants not conforming to this subsection are prohibited from expanding or adding an outside service area. And then with respect to eateries, alcoholic beverages shall not be served, nor shall foods containing or infused with alcohol be served. Wait a minute.
I think
Yeah,
you're moving to three. Three says any commercial outdoor.
Okay,
open
three.
air.
Okay, I'm sorry. Three. I had that highlighted, but that's not what we're referring to. Any commercial outdoor open area operation or outside service area is restricted by the following four conditions. There shall be no stand-up consumption of alcoholic beverages.
Standard one.
No stand-up. Yep. There shall be no external speakers or amplifiers. Any interior speakers on the premises shall not be directed toward the outside service areas, and the area shall be cleared of patrons by 11 p.m. So regardless of whether we place these restrictions on these applications, this is the existing law. I think for purposes of making it very clear to both the present conditional use operator and any future one who might become the manager of an operation as it changes, that they be made aware or reminded of the law as it exists. So Mr. Moskowitz is asking that we place these restrictions in each of the applications. But as I said before, even if we don't, that is the law of the land, and it would be equally applicable to these operations, whether it ends up in the permit or not.
Yes, that's what we figured. So that, I think that when we did the Nalu deck, like we used to way back when cite all these things in the conditions, but I feel that since it's in the law, and it's equally applicable as advised by our council, that we don't really have to list all those this time. And whoever makes the motion for grottos, I do have the old grottos back from a while ago. And I highlighted the ones that I thought, we would put on there, but it might put on there. But, and I X'd out the things like seated for blank or more patrons, seating for blank or more patrons must be provided, because that's already, those things are in the law already in the regulations, is what Fred's implying. So, all right, just keep that in mind.
Was there another comment?
Just one other quick question. Fred, could we just manage or just mention that in the conditional use that they have to at least follow the code or be aware of the code if you don't want to list all those specific conditions?
I wasn't arguing that we don't list the conditions. I was just saying that even if we didn't list the conditions, those
It applies.
conditions that represent the
Right.
law that they're required to comply with.
Right.
Mhm.
So
So we could either reference, we could either reference the conditions by referencing the section
Right.
designations.
That's what I was going to say, just reference the sections.
Mhm.
Dale?
I would personally rather list the condition, but I'm okay with just listing the area that's listed in the town code as long as we make it an effort that is part of the condition,
Right,
like you read.
right.
Because when we did grottos, when we did Nalu condition, but we don't have to. But it sure makes them aware. A lot of people don't even know that there's a condition.
Yeah, unless you went to read all the code and got all those specific things, you wouldn't be aware of them, so.
And then-
I'm
and
always
then-
finding stuff in the code.
Right, and then based on whatever unique situation you identify about a particular application, other reasonable conditions could be applied that would not reflect the law, but would be appropriate if you felt it was necessary to recommend.
take them down, pass it around. All right, any general comments before we get to, I'm gonna put one of the ordinances on your thing, and I'll pass it down. The Mom and Ray ordinance, if we're gonna get to a public hearing.
It's just an-
Would Jim, I'd like to recognize, Jim Deeds from the town of Dewey Beach and Bill Golfer, town manager. Did you guys want to say anything? Bill or Jim?
You know, I'd just like to say, back in April of this past year, the commissioners voted to extend the outside conditional COVID use to October 31st. At that time, I sent a letter out to all the restaurants that had COVID conditional uses, letting them know that the commissioners had extended this to October 31st. Since that time, both Dawn Hinks, the building official, and Jim Dedes, the assistant town manager, has made contact with the individuals that own these businesses, also to let them know that the expiration is October 31st and that they needed to get their paperwork in if they wanted to make it permanent for these establishments.
Thank you, Bill. Jim? All right.
Thank you.
Dale?
Yeah, of my head, sorry.
Sorry. Come back. to you.
We additional things in Nalu's and Grotto's Pizza.
Yeah.
That I made note of and I think ought to be also for the rest of the ones that have the same decks, because I want to treat everybody the same and fairly. We can't have one regulation saying, look, for instance, which out of context here, but no smoking at one and smoking at another.
Absolutely.
Can't
That's a
do
good
that.
example. Yeah, all right, good, Dale. That's definitely, we'll get into that. And Jim Deeds passed out the old resolution 170 from before with Grotto's. So we have the entire old list that I think I was on PNC back then when we did all this stuff. So
I think we all were.
yeah, Jim, yeah, it was on it. So anyway, we'll get to Grotto's in a little bit, but you can use those as guides, and Dale's got some ideas. So if we get into the public hearing, we'll close that and then we'll get into our conditions.
Right.
And then if we get one base, then we can probably just refer to that for ease of Dave taking notes or however we end up doing it, the rest of them, if that's what we want to do. All right. So any more comments from the commission before we open up the first public hearing for Mama Mary's? See none? Okay. So now we will move on to the public hearing on let's see, I can get my agenda. It's got misplaced here with all these papers. Here we go.
A little bit of paperwork.
Yeah. So public hearing on an ordinance regarding a conditional use permit, which I just passed out. The draft ordinance that was posted, and that is the Mama Maria's one. And so conditional use permit and application for a restaurant permit for compliance to expand a conditional use for Mama Maria Incorporated located at 1608 Coastal Highway, Dewey Beach, pursuant with the codes listed in the posting. And with the public hearing being open, and we've already sort of commented, we're looking for Mama Maria's to tell us anything they want to say, and then we'll get to the public to see if they want to say anything. Mama Maria's not here saying, anybody here?
Franco's on the, is Frank?
Oh, okay. Franco, you're up. Anything you want to tell us before we close the public hearing and go ahead and start listing conditions?
Hey, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So just basically been doing business here in the town of Dewey since 1993. We're 80% food, 20% alcohol. We're not really doing much rather than just adding using the same layout that was there before from during COVID. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much plain and simple. I don't really add much to add other than allow me to do so. My neighbors, I believe they've sent letters agreeing to, which is not a problem. Having the tables outside there, there's 10 tables, 40 seats. We shut down at 11, we open at 4. Sometimes we do lunch. There's no speakers outside. There's no standing. Yeah, so that's pretty kind of dry, nothing different than what it was from during COVID. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone in the public want to
Well,
talk, comment?
let's see if we have any questions for the applicant.
Any questions for the applicant? See none?
Can I ask the applicant if he's familiar with the restrictions that we just read for the record that appear in the code, and that you recognize they're applicable to your operation?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Fred. Thank you all. All right. So any public comments? See none?
Well. So let's see if there's anybody online who wants to speak in favor or in opposition.
Good idea.
To
Okay.
this.
Kate, anybody online?
He probably does not want to comment. He's probably.
All right, Paul, thank you very much for
Yeah.
attending. We don't see that you want to comment, so we'll assume you do not.
Right.
Any?
No
so we see
comments. I'm
none.
just listening in today.
Thank you, Paul.
And then is
Mr.
there
Valen?
anyone in the room who, I guess, show of hands, anyone here wants to comment on this application? Just for the record.
Yeah. Okay.
So the answer to that
Perfect.
is no.
Answer to that is no.
Just one last thing is I don't have any comments from Seabreeze Village Townhouses pro or con against the application.
Okay, now, Mr. Dedes, do you have anything you want to add to this board's consideration of this application?
The only concern, there's one area on the application, statement said that it was 90% alcohol, 90%, and 10% alcohol, so I think we're good there.
You live that microphone up.
And the only thing that we requested was to get some sort of a survey done for the fence area, and I believe the applicant is asking for a waiver on that. And, we did not get that. So we have.
So what does that mean? We don't know how much area is confined.
We
By the
weren't
fence.
sure. We wanted to get a floor plan to specify how much how much the square footage was with the applicant within the patron area. And also the exterior, and we couldn't establish that. with, Franco on that.
Can we
So-
ask the applicant?
We've asked them and they kept asking, they asked for a waiver on that. So
So the,
Required.
it is required to have that, and regrettably, we looked through the town records, we cannot find anything on patron space. And the engineering, I mean, it would require getting an engineering plan submitted and to us, but I believe that's what they're asking a waiver on. And I do want to point out that some of these, not everybody received, gave us the materials that we asked for. But the commissioners at the last meeting wanted everything to go before the planning commission, regardless of what we had at that point. And,
They don't want to battle it.
well, they didn't want to, I can't answer for the intent there, but I think there was a concern about the possibility of some of these places not being able to meet all the requirements before October 31.
But, excuse me. Can I?
Yeah, you guys.
The commissioners at any time can delay the removal of the outside seating area, or the permission that they've given.
Right.
They can extend that, say,
And
extend
then,
it.
right, and
And
then,
so it's not like we have to do everything today.
well, that's true, but they did agree to extend it, that no one was going to be held.
What I'm saying is that if we don't have the stuff we need to look into, if we don't have the required documentation, then it can be delayed. It's not like we're gonna stop them from having
It can be
the outside
delayed,
area, because the commissioner can say they can have it.
that's correct. It also can be sent forward with the condition that they meet all the requirements.
Good point.
And I did, the applicant did include, hand-drawn layout of the tables. And it's not, you're right, Jim. It's not to scale and everything like that. And there are others that have done that. But
Right.
he did include that. And would it be, I guess, just as a discussion for the group, could we make that part of the conditional use is that we get an updated site plan?
I'm not going to be in favor of that because I think it's,
that's,
we've got a site plan, we got a survey that was, in this package that was presented to us from town hall. It's an old survey. And the property's been operating fine since then, so I won't support that, but it doesn't mean you guys don't want to support it. I think that there's a survey in here, and I think they've been operating, since for a while with no issues.
There is a survey?
And
Is that the question?
This is what was in the package that was given to us. So technically there was a survey. And I guess at least that's
We
that's.
couldn't, when I spoke to Dawn, our building official, she couldn't determine the square footage for the patron space. And so we just want to make sure it's under the 4,000, otherwise working.
Right, so, okay, so
That was the
we'll,
one thing.
It is under the 4,000.
so if you guys want to make it a condition, you can. I'm going to vote against that. I'm going to say that we should let town hall figure out what they want to do. Recommendations that I'm looking for are conditions like no outside speakers and things like that.
Fred,
Right.
question. What's the exposure for this committee and the commission to move forward without having the survey in place?
The exposure,
Yeah.
you mean like the personal liability?
Yeah, is there any without having the survey in place?
I don't think that should be a major consideration or factor for you. You're a recommending body. We're noting for the record that the applicant actually did not speak to a request for a waiver.
Okay.
The applicant, I can see, is still on the monitor there. I would recommend that the applicant tell us why they can't meet our code requirements for designating these areas in the manner that's consistent with our code.
Are you asking about the site plan?
Yes,
So it's very expensive and we're not building anything. We're using the same layout that we gave to you guys back in when COVID. There's no building. There's no construction. There's nothing going on.
so the environment when the outside areas were permitted to be expanded was in the state of emergency with a notion that these businesses didn't have time to go through normal channels to try and keep people safe while keeping their employees working and their businesses operating. And we're not in that environment anymore. So we don't know. I mean, is that fence permitted? Do we know that? Do we have a permit pulled on this fence?
No,
So regardless of what this group does, there's going to need to be a permit pulled for this fence. This permanent fence is not authorized by the emergency response to.
I was given the okay by the town of Dewey to put the fence there. I wouldn't put the fence there if I wasn't given the permission to do so.
So the areas that were designated outside areas were required to be barricaded from areas beyond. There had to be some kind of designation and some kind of temporary structure would have been permitted. This group doesn't have the authority to legalize a fence that was a permanent fence that was constructed without a permit. That's not really for us. That's going to be a matter for the town at a later date.
That's why I was suggesting, Fred, that if we do our conditions, we would, we make the assumption that the town deals with those requirements
Mhm.
and we're just putting conditions to really protect the neighbors and stuff as far as lighting, noise,
Mhm.
trash removal or whatever, cleanliness. So my assumption is, the reason why I said I wouldn't vote for it is because I think that that's on the town hall to decide, if they want to improve the survey that's already in the package or not. And I'm just, we can recommend it as a condition. It doesn't matter if we do or not, but I would say that we just, limit our conditions because limit our conditions to the other things and let town hall worry about the code items and decide how they want to handle it. If, Dawn might like the survey the way it is. She might see something we don't see. She's got the full size plans. But for us, I don't know. We're going to recommend that or not because, until we get to close the public hearing and then, some of the other commissioners here might want to add that. And if it passes, it passes and it's only a recommendation anyway. So that's where we're at on that.
Again, actually, whatever we do now, commissioner, for anybody who doesn't meet the standards or can't right now, commissioners can extend their ability to
Right.
stay in the outside area
Right.
until they can come up with the square footage, right?
Yep. That's my
So
assumption,
it doesn't
yeah.
matter what we do.
Well, it matters. We give the conditions. We're obligated to list the conditions, for each one of these applications other than, actually
Oh,
also,
I'm talking about meeting the requirement of turning in the square footing.
correct. All right, any other public comments or comments from anyone before I close the public hearing? We get into, the ordinance discussion. Well, either he does or doesn't. So here's your chance, David, if you want to talk.
Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think there's been some confusion. My name is David Moskowitz, former commissioner, but I also live in the property called Seabreeze Village, which abuts Mama Maria's. And the fence is on two sides and they're on towards us. And we are but it's Franco's property. We are totally fine with it. My HOA wrote a letter in support. The other thing is Franco handed in a survey. To my knowledge, what he was asking for was a waiver from a site plan, which is meant for a construction of a new restaurant. All he's doing basically is putting tables and chairs and a small fence. There's no major construction. And if anything, his whole area is on his property. And it could be easily shown by that survey. And then separately, there was a confusion about him needing a seating and the town commissioners passed the seating plan requirement in '94.
Mr. Moskowitz, could you repeat that? You broke up.
Hey, Dave, Moskowitz, I think your last couple sentences we did not hear. Are you able to repeat those? In some
Yes,
form?
if you're talking about the seating plan requirement, I think there was some confusion because he opened his restaurant in 1993 and the town passed the seating plan requirement for 1994. So I think the issue is the building inspector or building official, whether it was Dawn or Jim Deeds, the only thing they really have to do is two things. One, make sure he falls under the 4,000 square feet requirement. And two, make sure the fence is on his property. It's very simple. It shouldn't be as complicated as it is, and it really falls on the building officials to just do those two things. I think from what I've seen, and I mean, Franco came to us, he presented to my whole HOA, everyone, the whole community is in favor of it. Everyone loves going there. It's something I religiously go with my daughter and my family on nights. Like it's a restaurant and it should be very simple to approve. But I think there's the only thing I'll add is I just think there's confusion between what a survey is and a site plan. And then I think there's confusion and those terms are being interchangeably turned around, and that's not correct.
But we don't have the ability to tell the applicants or any of the applicants that what is required is no longer required.
You actually, so with a survey, it is required, and Franco did give it. With a site plan, the commissioners have the ability to waive it because Mama Maria's had applied for outdoor dining once before in the front. And the commissioners said, since there was no new construction, they put the requirement, which I think you're doing the same thing, that any outdoor dining has to be on the property. So the commissioners actually have the ability to waive site plan requirements. They can't waive the survey requirement, but they can waive the site plan requirement if it's nonsensical. Something like Grotto's, which is all new construction, that's what the site plan is for. But something like an outdoor dining area where the site plan goes into sewage and all sorts of things, it's like 60 questions deep, maybe nonsensical. Plus, what I saw posted is Franco tried to answer the site plan questions as best as he could. But a lot of it is, a site plan could be very expensive for a small business owner.
Thank you, David. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. At this point, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing because I've seen, well, first of all, let me officially ask again. We already asked once. Anybody want to comment that's here or online? I see none right now. Kate sees none. All right, so we'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much. And now we have an ordinance in front of us an ordinance to amend a conditional use permit and amend its restaurant permit of compliance to expand the patron area for Mama Maria Incorporated located 1608 Coastal Highway, Dewey Beach, pursuant to section 25D 1A1 of chapter 185 and in accordance with the definition and requirements of a restaurant in chapter 144, section 6. So that those words for the rest of the applications will be pretty much the same with the change of the address and the business name. So I won't repeat them next time. I'll just mention the business name. The subject of the parcel of the land is at that address, which is north of Reed Avenue and south of McKinley Avenue along Coastal Highway. So basically, you see the ordinance. They were all provided in advance to our commissioners. And I think what we're looking for is a motion to recommend the town commissioners approve the ordinance or not with a list of conditions. So this is the point where we would like I guess we go through a discussion first, Fred, and list, or do we need a motion and then list the
I
conditions?
think you can discuss it. You can do either.
Okay, let's just go for a motion to approve an ordinance with conditions as we'll list in a second, and then we'll list the conditions. If we can live with those, Fred said we can do it that way. And then we will, once we get the conditions listed, then we can have a vote, if you guys are good with that. So we're looking for a motion for this ordinance.
I'll make the motion.
All right, so Jack Rutherford for the motion. A second, anyone?
So what's the motion?
The motion is, Jack, to approve is it to approve this ordinance with a list of conditions to be determined during our discussion?
That's correct.
Is that good?
And I'll
All right.
second that.
I'd second that. Now we're in discussion among the planning and zoning commissioners. And I'd like to, if possible, allow advice from town hall if we're allowed to look over and have them chime in along the way. But for now, if you go back to, you can see the ordinance, the A, B, C, D, et cetera, but the conditions that you might want to talk about are things like outside speakers, noise, the closing, or we could refer, as David Lyons mentioned, just refer to the code because the new code has all that stuff in there. Those two sections we read earlier.
We're gonna do that for all the.
Yeah, if you want to do that, we can just say, all these apply to them as a recommendation. And then in between now and the town commissioners, if Mama Maria's doesn't like it, they can come to the town meeting and try to get them cut out or whatever. But if we just go with the conditions that are in the law, that make it pretty simple. And then we know we can't go wrong because it's consistent. But there might be one or two others you want to add that you come up with, and that's all fair game. So to me, the ones that I was thinking about in my mind for all of these were exactly what were in the code that was read, because that's pretty much what over the years that we've done to these places. We said, you got to do this, you got to close by 11, you got to, and they're all in there. No outside speakers in the outside area, and from my observations in town, the restaurants are, all these places are compliant. When you go to Nalu, like their music is inside, they don't have a bunch of speakers outside, et cetera, et cetera. Just using them as an example, not picking on them. But that was just one of the last ones we did. So how do we want to, you guys okay with those conditions that were read? Do you want to see those again? Dale, you want to talk about it?
Mike, I think if we go with the statement of following the law that included all those conditions.
Yeah.
And then add plus any additional ones that we want. And I have a list of ones that I pulled up from other restaurants that we put on other restaurants that I would like to see included. And if it's okay, I'd like to read them all. And then you can decide, we can go back over them, or you can decide you don't want to listen to them at all.
Well, why don't you list them now, Dave? I guess you're gonna take some bullet notes, and then Fred, you're gonna be having to add them if they're extras. So
All right, I don't believe smoking was included in that,
it is.
in the previous one,
Tables, bar area, what is the restaurant conforming? Thought they were.
okay.
Stand up.
I'd like no smoking put in, no live entertainment. This talks about the outside seating area. Public access to outdoor areas shall be restricted after 11 p.m. to deter congregation in that area. Just outside lighting,
What was the third? What was,
I'm sorry,
what was the one you just mentioned?
public access to outdoor, it's saying that was on Grotto. Public access to outdoor service areas shall be restricted after 11 p.m. After 11.
So the code requires those areas to be closed. at-
Yeah,
at
so,
11.
but what we put in Grotto, and the reason I'm asking this, is that some way it should be shut off. So people don't drift into that area and start drinking or talking or smoking or whatever.
Here's what it says. It says the area shall be clear to patrons by 11 p.m. So if you cover.
Okay. Let me finish.
All
right. Yeah, due to increased patron area availability, applicant will ensure that there are sufficient bathroom facilities per state health department requirements. It may not need to change anything, I don't know. But we're, in effect, in some restaurants, we will be doubling their capacity, their occupancy. Even though it's outside, you know, are we gonna need to increase bathroom facilities? Clean up during hours of operation and early morning hours. The town code already said they clean up every morning, but a lot of these places, do we want an extra cleanup at night before they close up? And initially, I think it ought to say, meet all previously approved conditions plus the following conditions. In other words, anything that were previously approved for their restaurant, meet those conditions that are in existence right now, plus anything we add today.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thought, Dale. Good catch. Covered in some law somewhere, we should put it in there. At least I'll agree with that. For everything Dale said, I mean, I thought the smoking was in here, but it is not. Good research, Dale. Thank you. And because we definitely don't want any smoking out there. So, Fred, I guess you've taken pretty good notes.
So
there.
I suppose, but what we have here is effectively a request of the maker of the motion to amend his motion to include these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items that I have. Is that acceptable to Mr. Redifer?
And that would only be for discussion at this point, right? We'd be amending it for another discussion.
No, you're, if you say yes, then we'll take a vote on it, you know, yeah.
But you're free to discuss
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
before you vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll amend.
Second.
All right, so obviously you've got it.
Dale seconded that. So we got there's 6 other, which Dave and Fred can compare notes. I'll have them talk afterwards. We won't, do anything that will break a FOIA rule or anything, but just to double check that. And so we have the vote for the ordinance as initially proposed by Mr. Rutherford and seconded by Mr. Cook, and then amended by the discussion up for vote now.
So the applicant is requesting to create an outside or to make permanent an outside service area that's 35 feet in length and 23 feet in width. That's their application. And that they're asking, pardon me,
I believe it's 30.
what is this? This is,
No, I'm talking about the patron area.
right, that was my next point, is these are 4 tops, right? So this is the proposed layout that they're gonna have to. They're not gonna be able to add any more tables or chairs or anything other than what's shown here, which is allowing for how many patrons?
40, I believe.
40.
He requests it's written 40 extra, 40 additional is what he's requesting.
Mhm. Okay, so I just want to make sure that's understood. So if he has 50, I mean, people who are standing in that area cannot be consuming alcoholic beverages. Only people who are seated, that's one of the requirements. And that, for instance, the potted area there, the ornamental area is not to be used for a patron area at any time.
Can I ask a question, Fred? It's of you. Right now, we're approving a restaurant, additional serving space, exterior serving space. Where does the alcohol come in? Are we approving alcohol? Because I don't think we're.
Well,
in a position-
it's 80-20 no matter what.
No, I understand that, but that would this have to go back to the ABC?
No, that's not,
That's included in the.
no, that's not our concern. They've got to comply with the ABCC.
All we're
regulations.
approving is a restaurant.
Yes, and in the
Well,
condition,
we're approving an expansion of an
Expansion.
existing
Expansion.
conditional use for outside service area, and they've got to comply with
The ABC.
ABCC.
Okay.
let's go around. I'm gonna do one by one, just so we officially, Dave, so you can just know for sure instead of doing all out eye. So, Jack, are you for your motion?
Yes.
All right. Jimmy,
I have to recuse myself from this.
Jimmy's, he's recusing himself. Dave,
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
For a lot of reasons, I vote yes also.
All right, so it passes by a vote of 4 with 1 abstention, and we'll move on to the next one. Thank you.
So the motion is to recommend approval of the ordinance with the additional conditions.
And the code and the town code
And insertion.
Correct.
Yeah,
Insertion. of the
Either
town
by
code.
reference or itemization.
Correct,
Right.
correct. Thank you, Fred, for the clarification. All right.
I just have one last thing I want to finish up, and that is the survey or the discussion, because we didn't make any ruling on the survey ourselves. Survey versus the site plan. So,
Mhm.
Correct.
It's required, so the town has to decide how to
They'll have to deal with that.
you know, yeah.
get it
so
or
that-
not get it.
Mhm. Right.
Right. Kick the can to the town hall.
So,
All right, that's
Mr.
perfect.
O'Connor, you recused yourself, and I take it that's because you're a restaurateur in the area, and that there are certain items that are on the agenda that I don't think you plan on recusing yourself for, right?
I would rather get to them sooner than later.
Okay, but for other expansions of existing restaurants, you're going to be
I'm gonna have to
recusing
recuse.
yourself?
I'd
So
rather
that,
not, but yes, I will.
right, so what that means is you won't be participating in any of the deliberations that occur either. It's not just simply not voting, but you're not going to influence the outcome with any of your comments. Yep, okay, all right.
All right, closes the first one. Second one, we're going to discuss, let's see. Now we're going to, because we discussed everything in general initially, now we're going to open the public hearing on an ordinance regarding a conditional use permit, which is grottos, and an application for restaurant permit of compliance to construct and operate a new restaurant to be located at 1509 Coastal Highway, Dewey Beach. And that'll be a public hearing. We'll also keep the planning and zoning commissioners discussion from the original open also for clarity purposes. So at this point, we'd like the applicant, if the applicant's here, to present what they're planning on doing and which corner and describe what's where and where's going, et cetera. So everybody's clear on what's going on.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Give us a minute to set up a little bit and then we'll give you a good description.
We'll move to the rezoning after this. I was thinking about switching them, but we'll just keep it like this. See how it
Just
goes.
a point of clarification, the rezoning is for Jeffrey and Lily Gosner. They actually own the lot behind what used to be my law office. They're both here, but it's not Grotto doing that particular rezoning.
Okay.
In any event, I might, Grotto Pizza, of course, has been operating in Dewey, the building across the street from this location since, I think, before the town of Dewey. But in any event, they've decided that they want to make a capital investment by building a brand new restaurant. They have owned for many years the parcel that's across the street from the existing Grotto Pizza restaurant on the southwest corner of Reed Avenue and Highway 1. The parcel is zoned RB2. They have put together a design for a brand new facility. The original thought process that was going on was to build something that was just under 2,000 square foot of patron area. With the advent of the change in the zoning code this last year to increase the maximum square footage for patron area for restaurant to up to 4,000. It gave them the ability to expand just slightly. And that made their design work a little better, quite frankly. And so they have now proposed a brand new restaurant comply with all the conditions associated with the zoning code under 185, 25D1A that you're all just discussing. The proposed floor plan area, excuse me, or of patron area, excuse me, is 2,147 square feet. I'm going to let Mr. Geisner show you a little bit about how that's set up. This facility does not propose to have any outside service area. So a lot of the conditions you were discussing in your last public hearing about what to do with outside are inapplicable to Grotto's application. Grotto's does have the design concept included that some of their windows are going to be either I would describe as roll-ups or garage door roll-ups, and some of the windows in the right in the corner at the corner of Reed and Highway 1 will be what I call rollback doors, so that there will be an open air look to it, but everything that is going on at the facility will be under roof. At the initial presentation before referral to planning and zoning, there was a brief discussion about whether we had a takeout window or not. And one of our pictures actually depicted something that looked like that. And we revised our drawing, or not drawings particularly, but our elevations, and resubmitted that corrected elevation shortly after that first hearing to make it clear that while there is going to be an ability to do takeout, you'll have to go inside the restaurant to do it. There won't be a takeout window per se. We obviously submitted a full preliminary site plan to the town. There's a much more developed set of plans that have been submitted, and I think we actually provided copies. We've given you the smaller versions now, but you see the various elevations. And we have a third. We have a third. There's a couple of samples of the proposed construction, what it'll look like, the elevations. That particular one that's in the largest version of those three is at the corner of Reed and Highway 1. Then the top, well, there you go. There you go. That's one directly from across the street on Highway 1.
So that's where your law office was, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
This is the old, it was originally built as an arcade way back when. I indirectly leased that space from 2005 to 2009. When the recession hit and the real estate market dried up at that time, we decided to close it. I shouldn't say that. We decided to close the day-to-day operations. We retained the office until a successor firm of mine retained that office until January 2022. But we negotiated and terminated that lease. So they're now free to demolish the building and build a brand new facility. The site plan, I believe, was submitted and reviewed by the town building official. We were asked to provide some comments, which we did. I think the building official, although Dawn's not here today, would represent to you that the plans and specifications that submitted at this point are compliant with the town building code and the town zoning code in terms of setbacks and the like. I think Grotto's is extremely excited about trying to make this capital investment in the town. We do have both the representative from the architect and the engineers here in case you had any questions at all about plans or what we intend to do. Our goal is to try to get approval and recommendation of approval from this group. And hopefully, if you can see your way clear to do it, to get the town council to vote on it next week so that we can immediately start ordering building materials and kitchen equipment and such, because of the delays in getting everything in the economic environment we're in at the moment. We are going to be applying for a restaurant liquor license as well. And that is an ABCC issue, but obviously we have to have approval to do that. And so we're asking that you do that. The proposed plan does not provide for any parking because the we aren't required to do that anymore. And on the next application, which we'll get to eventually, you'll be seeing that Jeffrey Gosnell and Lily Gosnell have purchased the parcel that sits behind it and are going to be asking for that parcel to be rezoned to residential zoning. So at some point in the not too distant future, they can hope to build a residence there. Right now, zoned RB2, you can only do mixed use. And quite frankly, although this is for the next year, mixed use is difficult when you don't have frontage on highway. Unless you have other questions or you have any questions for our engineer or architect, we would hope that you would consider approving. We did submit a proposed ordinance. Actually, that's not quite right. The town attorney prepared a proposed ordinance at the last public hearing when it was officially introduced. I handed up a small set of minor changes, recommendations for additions to that. And to the extent that you want to propose other conditions to us, we're happy to give you comment right while while we're all standing here as to whether we would voluntarily support other conditions. Although, as I said, there is no outside service area proposed. There'll be the ability to have music inside, but we understand that our inside speakers, which I think are largely going to be coming in the ceiling, aren't they? Won't really be directionally pointed outside, if you will, be pointed down into the restaurant. But other than that, we don't propose to have any live entertainment. We don't, although we could conceivably, we don't propose to do that. We do have a bar area. We believe that complies with the requirements of the town. So I'm gonna, if it's helpful to you, I was going to open it up for questions from us. And then if there's anything you need from our professionals, we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Could I start?
Yes, sure.
Thanks for reminding me of the issue of the, I think it was a few whereas clauses that you wanted to see in the final ordinance.
Well, actually, no, they were, that's for a different application later, having to do with an existing expansion. I think all I proposed.
Oh, okay.
In connection with, I have another client that I represent.
That's
right.
all right. That's right.
All I suggested, there's in the original proposed ordinance, there was a couple typographical errors in the second whereas. Which I offered up a revision to, and I have another version of that again, if you want to look at it. Here's the one that just corrected a few typos. And the only language that I proposed adding to the body of the draft ordinance was in the fact that we were going to be asking for a liquor license, that I was asking for a phrase added that we would have the right to have a liquor license, even though you don't give us the power to do that, the ABCC does. But so that when we submit this to the ABCC, they're aware that we got approval to have a restaurant with a liquor license. And those are my only comments to the proposed ordinance that I submitted earlier. And here's my hand markup. I've given you a red line, but there's my hand markup to make it easier for council.
Thank you.
And the one I handed you a few minutes before that had the corrections inserted.
This one from here and this one from the map.
Yeah, I just did put those few changes in.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right, so
That's-
Fred's looking those over, and we'll look to you, Fred, when and if we make a motion here, that the motion would include to include the changes on the whereases as described, as long as Fred gives a head nod, he thinks that the whereas change is okay.
In this instance, they are primarily typos. There's a mistaken reference to the section number that actually we read earlier.
Is that 11 versus 1 or something?
Yes, yeah. There's
you
a
guys see it,
reference
what
to the
we're talking
wrong
about?
licensure. It says ABS. It should be
It should be.
ABCC. And just an acknowledgement that the restaurant is a restaurant with an ABCC license, which is, I think, a reference in our code. So thank you for that.
Okay. So Fred, so consider that in your motion that we would include the changes as recommended on the whereases, and and Fred has looked at those and thinks that they're adequate, I guess, as far as they're just typo errors. All right, so at this point, again, this is a new construction, and you have the resolution 170 from back in the day. Some of us were on there, and so, if to me, I'm thinking like a motion would say something to the
Well,
effect.
let's hold on. So, if any of the members here have questions for Mr. Spence, now
Okay.
would be a good
Oh,
time.
yeah, we're not in
Yeah.
discussion yet.
Yeah,
We
and
we're
we're
starting
gonna-
a public hearing. I have none for Mr. Spence.
And then you may want to ask about their hours of operation and other things you would ask about with regard to.
So Jack, you,
Uh,
or whoever, commissioners, a lot of those hours of operation stuff are in the 170, and I see Dale's going down those, and he'll probably be talking about those in a sec. But any questions for the applicant, Jack? We'll
And
go
then,
right.
and then I also think we need to hear at least something from Mr. Dedes on behalf of the town, and then we need to remember that there could be others either in the room or online who want to talk about.
Oh, yeah. So let's do this. Why don't we go town hall first? Jim or Mr. Zolfer?
Okay. Yeah, we've met with the applicant several times and they meet all the conditions as required for a restaurant. And they meet the 4,000 square foot limit, so we're good. So we would, our position would be as we're very supportive of this restaurant.
All right, Mr. Zolfer?
Yeah, they've been very responsive to our questions and they've met all the requirements. My only question would be, when will the garage doors be open and when will they be shut?
Okay.
What would those hours be?
Okay. Any comments from the public in the room here, face to face? See none. Kate, any comments out there in the virtual zone? I see, you see a negative on that.
So I do have a letter that did come in and you can decide when you want to review it.
Go ahead, yeah.
The Seabreeze Village Condominium Association.
All right.
So I don't know, have you folks talked to them, had a chance to speak to them directly about any of their concerns?
I haven't spoken to him. I don't know whether, I honestly don't. I have not heard from him.
That's fine. I just asked a question whether or not it had, so I can read this to you. And I'll just discuss some of the questions or things that people are going to ask anyway, I think. So Seabreeze Village Condominium Association is excited about the new Grotto Pizza. We look forward to being patrons of the new restaurant. However, due to the restaurant's proximity to residential areas, we are concerned about the proposed takeout window opening out to the sidewalk in lieu of an in-restaurant carryout area.
Okay, so
Think
so
we
that,
addressed
yeah,
that.
so that came up before the commissioners, before the referral. And that was addressed, I think, briefly
And-
by Mr. Spence, just to
Right.
avoid any confusion. There's no takeout window on the sidewalks. The only takeout's going to be from within the restaurant.
That's right. So I did get that. The only one is, the other next comment is, our community is also concerned that there's no proposed outdoor seating other than the steps of the restaurant. Lack of seating will lead to patrons congregating on the sidewalks, especially late at night or crossing the street to eat at the tables at Sharky's once they close.
So could we, does, Dave, my question on that is to the applicant, I guess, is, so right now you can go in and get a slice and you sit down, at those tables that aren't seated tables, or just tables you can sit at and eat. Are you gonna have anything like that so that people aren't outside on the ground eating and making a big giant mess? That's what Seabreeze is concerned about, and we all are.
So this is our takeout, so we. Our takeout area is back in, so I'm showing you the plan. So This
Okay,
is the corner of.
Can Jeff be
Iowa.
heard by? Is he being picked up? Is your, I'm wondering if your voice is being picked up.
I can. That's not a problem. Being the youngest, I can really talk. So again, that's that where I was referencing. The entry for takeout is here, and then of course they can come through here. These are not tables that will be seated. These are gonna be for lack of. And this is kind of the area that they would go in if they're going to order slices and things of that nature. Are they asking?
yeah, they're asking that, yes.
Everything else.
But I would have to preface that by saying that the code does not require outside seating areas of restaurants. So it's a business decision on the part of the applicant, whether they want to serve folks outside, and it's also probably a function of your available space.
But I think, Jack, I think that the Seabreeze is my perception is that Seabreeze, if you're listening, your comments are sort of addressed. You know, they're not gonna have outside seating, but they got those tables just like they have now, but they're different. You know, these are high tops instead of booths. But you buy a slice, you have the option, you can come sit at those and nobody's, you know, there's not gonna be people dining there, you know, getting seated there. You know, it's first come, first serve, as the applicant had said. I personally think that'll serve the purpose of kind of what's there now, you know, there's a place to eat. We're hoping that, I'm sure Seabreeze is hoping the same thing, because, you know, I'm sure that they don't want people out there and, you know, 10 o'clock at night, eating slices of pizza and leaving crust and stuff laying on the ground or whatever. So to me, I think Grotto's is addressed I had the same concern and my family did, and we don't even, you know, we're down the street. So I'm hoping that that's satisfactory to Seabreeze, short of them being here, but they'll have another, you get another bite at the apple, Seabreeze, and that is the town commissioners meeting, if you don't like what you're seeing or hearing at this point. But if we recommend to town commissioners our list of conditions, I think that it's been addressed at least, but I could be wrong and I apologize if I am. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I would just, and I don't think you're suggesting anything otherwise, but I would not recommend that this council make it a condition of approval that they provide outside seating.
Exactly.
Right.
Jack Rutherford has
I think,
something.
I think one comment and one question I have, the comment I have is this community is across coastal highway. So you would have a large, you know, the concern is that they'd have a large group of people walking across coastal highway late at night with their slice of pizza to sit down. I've walked in town late at night and most people are walking north and south. They're not walking across the streets. So I think with the depiction we see here and the clarity of no window and some seating, I think it addresses what we need. The question I have is the speakers at night. Would there be a way that we can, in a technology world, have those that are closer to the highway or outside be reduced in noise or muted so that the community isn't hearing music 9:30 through close to 11 o'clock?
Yes, but I also will, there's a pragmatic standpoint on this side of how that happens. These are roller doors that come up.
Sure.
So they're gonna come up in the ceiling, you basically have for 8 feet.
Yep.
Or I think it's actually it's 10, but 8 to 10 feet.
With
The doors are
right.
coming in. So
Okay.
there's not gonna be a speaker there anyway. On this side, yeah, we can definitely bring them back into here, but again, we're not, I mean, you know, probably doing, we're not last to allow music, we don't. The loudest thing we ever have is our television first. We're just, you know, you're not coming to us for, you know. But.
I want to add something at the end too, because we had a brief discussion before these comments came up. One, hours of operation, our requested hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. As you all probably know, historically, Grotto's, because it was here before the town, it has been able to stay open past 1 a.m. and serve pizza until I think 2 or 2:30. And it's giving that up with this new restaurant. Number one, first of all, because I don't think it's entitled to it without variance. The second thing that I asked Mr. Gosnell, and I think he answered correctly, but I'm going to let him speak for himself, is when would you close the doors and the sliders in the front? Yes, that's a good depiction.
These sides 11 o'clock, 11 p.m.
So the restaurant will still be open, but I think we're going to close, make it an inside space by 11.
It will be an inside space, and you know, what, I'm sorry, let me also add these. They're nano walls, so it'll be.
If you want, I think that's a voluntary condition. I think we would agree. Well, it's, if we had an outside space, it clearly would be, but to the extent you're trying to make it clear, that's not something we're opposed to. I just want to make sure I
The
heard
present
from him.
restaurant has to close the windows at 11.
This one, yes.
The present. one.
Oh, well, I don't know the answer to that
Yeah,
question.
Yeah, because you had an outside area.
Oh, I don't remember. I mean, certainly, we're not talking about outside service areas, but I'm just saying we're going to close our windows and doors so that we're an inside restaurant by 11. That's all
Yeah, the current
point I'm
condition,
making.
the current condition is condition 26 from before, and has all exterior windows and doors except those used in the takeout area shall be closed at 11. The
Oh, I see.
doors between
Got
the
it.
outside service area and bar area shall not be used after 11 except in emergency. That's what was in there before. That was 170 number 26.
Yeah.
different than we had. before.
Okay.
And we don't have any deck or outside space.
Yeah, yeah, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, they don't apply. Yeah.
Designated to this particular application.
No. All right. So, I'm sorry, any other questions?
So I mean, you've addressed a lot of the comments here from Seabreeze. We've already talked about takeout window, talked about the 11 o'clock closes the doors. The only other one they have is adequate trash cans be provided for patrons who will be consuming their carryout orders on the steps of the restaurant, which I would assume we would have town ordinances anyway for trash. Trash receptacles.
There is, but there's a large amount of trash around the current restaurant, and we've added extra trash cans, and I've talked to them if they're out there.
I think that addresses all their chief comments.
All right. Is there anything else for us?
Dale?
Yeah, other than the previous conditions that don't apply at all, meaning to outside areas, parking areas, et cetera, are you willing to continue the conditions that are required now from the old restaurant to the new restaurant?
So
Could I look at them briefly?
Yeah, so it's not continuing to be bound by them, but to be bound by them in the new restaurant, right?
Yeah, in other words, they have certain conditions, a number of them that are required of the old restaurant that should be, I think, required of the new restaurant.
So I don't have them memorized. One of them referred to deliveries I saw.
Yeah, I wouldn't. There's a number of I checked off. There's a lot of them that just apply to outside area. They don't apply.
Is this something that's applied to all restaurants in town, or is this something that's?
May not
specific to
be.
Grotto?
I don't know. I think we need to read those.
I can do that.
Yep.
I can do that. Number one, seated dining for 35 or more patrons will be provided. Minimum of 80% of the patron area exclusive of kitchens. That's in the code anyway. Maximum of 20% of the patron area exclusive storage areas, outside service areas, and restrooms may be designated as bar area.
We are.
In an area designed for seated food service, alcoholic beverage can only be served to dining patrons. No stand-up consumption of alcoholic beverage in the area designated for seated food service is permitted. All tables and chairs will be maintained in the configuration shown in the approved conditional use application. If the bar area is separated from the dining area, that's in the code anyway, that we're going to put 144. Separated by walls or partitions, the number of patrons in the bar area cannot exceed fire marshal's occupancy limit for that area. Kitchen facilities shall be under the direction of the chef or cook. And then this one says, outside service area may be used for seated dining only. And
So there's no outside service.
And I changed it,
Right.
I changed it to, there will be no outside service area.
Well, I don't think you need to make that a condition use.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or they're gonna have to come back and apply for that, right?
well, they don't, but they're not asking for it.
I know, I understand it.
Mhm. They
We're
can't,
saying there shall be no,
We also don't have room for it, quite frankly.
but I don't think you need to prohibit it.
okay. No stand-up consumption of alcoholic beverages permitted in the well.
Oh, right, that doesn't apply. And we'll give you a chance.
The applicant, number 13, the applicant shall obtain a certificate of compliance. That's in chapter 144. Number 14, hours of operation. Here's where it used to say shall be limited until 11 p.m. the outside service area and 1 a.m. for the restaurant and 2 a.m. for the takeout area. And now you're saying you're going to close at 1 no matter what.
We can't stay open until 2.
That's correct.
Yeah, this is not a legal non-conforming use. They're proposing a new use, so they have to comply with existing law.
Right. So the hours of operation are from 11 to 1, is that it? Okay.
That's what,
11 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Okay. About chain link fence, that has nothing to do with the impervious material.
That doesn't.
Number 17, the applicant shall redesign Reed Street parking lot, that's not. Applicant shall reduce patron area, no, that's not. 18, 19, beach bar sign is gone.
Yeah.
20 smoking shall be prohibited, so you have,
Well, they don't have outside.
We don't have outside.
Yeah, but I-
That's
yeah,
right,
that's right.
Yeah.
Tiered planning, that has nothing to do with applicants shall erect fence 23, entertainment permitted outdoors not, had nothing to do with it. No outdoor public address system amplifiers or speakers are permitted on the applicant's property. Public access to the outside, well, that's gone. And then it needs to be changed, but it's 26 said all exterior windows and doors except those used in the takeout area shall be closed at 11.
You say all.
They represent.
Yeah, he said all, so that stays. That'll stay.
Say that again.
It will stay. So they've.
Yeah, but I
agreed
mean, the last sentence, doors in the outside service area.
to- Or shall not be
Yeah.
used.
There's no outside
There's no outside.
Right,
area.
that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying, it's gone.
Yeah.
Number 27, live music is prohibited in the takeout area
There's,
after 11 PM.
there's no takeout area. It's inside the restaurant, so that doesn't apply.
You do have a takeout area.
Well,
No,
the
it's
old
inside the
restaurant
there's-
separate area.
yeah.
And the existing, I'll say the old restaurant had that completely separate takeout area. You couldn't even access it from the main restaurant. So when those conditions were done, I think that was, they were,
Gotcha.
which we don't have anymore. It's
Gotcha.
all one.
Everybody's got to come inside.
Everyone's
for
got to
takeout. That's basically the change here, that
28, all interior speakers in the building shall be directed towards the interior space and away from the exterior door, windows, and wall.
Yeah.
39 is not relevant, 30 is not relevant, 31 is not relevant, 32, 33, 34 is not relevant in my mind, 30.
You're right. We agree.
36, a designated manager shall be on site during all hours of operation to enforce noise levels and other relevant behavior. I thought of that, Jack, when you mentioned noise level.
But is that
That's-
existing?
we have to have the-
Right, you have
Yeah, you're right.
So then you have no problem if
Person,
it's continued.
that,
All right, 37
Well,
doesn't
but it-
matter anymore. 38, the applicant during periods of normal operation shall remove loose trash along West Side. Jack, you mentioned that. Because
Along-
And we need to revise that 38, Dale, a little bit because we have them doing it 3 times a day. And we're just gonna say twice daily, in the morning and at night. You good with that?
in the morning and night is fine. We've been working with the town
Okay.
on trash.
The M&P.
Because I saw it 3 times a day. I'm sure
Right.
it's difficult to manage. Is
Yeah,
it? Okay.
I don't think that.
Uh,
39's out,
And that's it.
40's out. All right.
Okay,
Well,
Mr. Spence wants to comment.
Well, I think I just need repeating that this is a brand new restaurant application for a brand new conditional use. Grotto Pizza had 40 conditions imposed upon it when it tried to build a patio 25 years ago.
And
10 years ago. All I was getting at is that this is overkill and was at the time, with all due respect, even though my partner did the application back
That's why
then.
most of them were eliminated.
Well, and I was getting at is because most of this had to do with the fear of noise in the outside service area and noise emanating from what I would call the old bar area. And none of those things are applicable to this application. The 2 conditions that I think are relevant are closing the doors and the windows by 11. Virtually everything else that was in the first 5 or 6 of, first 8 or 9 of the conditions are right in the A1 section,
That's correct.
which we have to comply with. We can't have a conditional use without them. And our proposed ordinance specifically cites that section and says we have to comply with that. And so I don't want to make this more complicated than it need be. And so I would only recommend that you consider adopting 2 or 3 conditions, not 40, or nowhere close to 40, because that's probably not fair. If you're thinking in terms of what Grotto used to live with and the capital investment it's now making to build a brand new compliant restaurant, they're totally different from one another. And so let's try to keep it simple and do what the code requires, which is clear. And we bound by the code, and we've agreed to the closing the windows and doors. But I'm not sure there's really much else to condition it upon. With all that said, we're obviously at your pleasure.
Did you say there were two concerns? You said closing the doors, and was there a second?
The one that originally came up with the takeout windows, but and that's, there will be no takeout window.
Um,
All right.
So I leave that to you. And I'll be happy to go sit down if you don't.
Oh, no, that's fine. Hang out for a sec. So Dale, the way I see it, the ones you're looking at with the checks. I think if you do count 1, 2, and 3, then you're gonna have 11 plus, so you're gonna have 14, conditions.
But what, can we go over those again? The ones you think you need the most? Are the ones?
Go ahead, Dale.
Well, I think the ones that I read, I think they're appropriate, but they are, and a lot of them are in the code already.
Yeah.
So-
We have to, they're in and all.
Say what?
They're already in there.
I understand that.
So you're just repeating it.
I understand
Okay.
that.
So, are we, Dale, do you feel, do you want to are we, Fred, do you think we're at the point where we close the public hearing? And we debate it?
Well, I think you can.
Because we got no comments from the public. We have no.
Well, I mean, sometimes you'll ask for public comment, and then we'll have a whole lot of additional information that gets exchanged.
Right.
And then, maybe there's more public comment that probably isn't, but it's possible there's more public comment that is
Kate's got
generated.
one. Kate's got one based on what you're saying. So,
Mhm.
all right, Kate,
Right.
all right, so let's hear Mr. Moskowitz. If you're there, David?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think what Commissioner Cook proposed is correct because it's just reiterating some of the conditions, but we live across the street. I go to Grotto's all the time with my daughter. We got pizza, macaroni and stuff. I understand it's a new place, but it's important to put conditions. You put about 24, 25 conditions on Starboard Chlor. You need to be consistent and fair and put similar conditions because it helps to write it out because referencing code doesn't always get followed, but it helps to put it out that windows and doors close by 11 and no additional amplification of music or things of that, because I live across the street from Grotto's. They've been an amazing neighbor for the last 10 years. And to have it continue, it's helpful to put those conditions that are on it now, because once you can always take off a condition, but it's basically, you can't put it on after the fact. And as part of Seabreeze, we still would like a condition on Grotto's because we're not against them having a takeout window in the future. And things happen where restaurants have mysteriously added a takeout window 3 years ago. One such restaurant I can think of. It would be helpful if you put a condition, since they're agreeing to it, that if there would be a takeout window, it needs to close by 11 p.m. since there would be food and alcohol involved and no takeout area. Like, it would be helpful to put the conditions now. So this way you're done with it and can move on. But the windows and doors closing by 11, that's very important. And the hope is it becomes a Dewey Beer Company and not like a Jimmy's, because Reed Avenue is a quiet street and Grotto's has been a great neighbor. But these conditions that Commissioner Cook have cited has helped. And especially with like any sort of entertainment, trash pickup twice a day, just simple things, just help them become a good neighbor. Seabreeze did reach out to Grotto's and Grotto's did not respond. So just for that record to correct that. Thank you.
The problem is, David, that we've already said to Mama Maria that we just quoted the code. We didn't list everything. Now, there are a few things like trash and a couple things here that probably should be added. But if we just quote the code like we did with Mama Maria's, that'll cover all those areas and it'll be the same as Mama Maria.
Let's not
Well, Mama Maria's was asking for Mama Maria's was asking for an expansion of the outdoor premise, which continues their existing conditional uses and just adds. You put conditions on just that additional area. With Grotto's, it's a whole new restaurant. So you basically need to put the proper conditions because, and you should cite that code, but there's other conditions like you had talked about previously with smoking or no smoking. Now it's an all indoor place. So obviously it'll be non-smoking, but there's other conditions that might not be in the code that might be relevant to. I think the most important would probably be the sliding doors and windows closed by 11, which is what Nalu has, for example. So I mean, Starboard Chlor got 24 conditions, and you also cited the code. You just want to be consistent.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moskowitz. Anything else?
That's it, and thank you.
All right.
And you've been doing 2 hours already, so thank you for everyone who's volunteering in the commission.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, just a quick thing. We've heard a couple of times that from the earlier applicant and from this comment that restaurants who wish to expand their present conditional use into an outside service area is maintaining the status quo, but they're not. This is the first time they've ever filed a proper application. They haven't done anything wrong, but they're filing a proper application at this point to expand their existing conditional use. And that's why we're here. Because the authority to allow them to operate these outside service areas was only ever temporary and in response to the governor's state of emergency. So we're getting our first look at some of these other applications. And that's an opportunity for you to consider the actual location of those vis-a-vis traffic and other residential and commercial uses, and whether they need to be conditioned a little bit differently because of those unique characteristics they present. Okay, great.
So Mike.
Appreciate it.
if we
Go ahead,
just-
Dale.
If we just quote the code and it covers many of these things, have you found some that are not covered by the code? I have. think I have.
I'll defer to you. I mean, I've been through this 3 times. You can see it. My notes seem to match up with yours because, you know, my code here, I've been peeking at yours. So if you found some that do not, I think that, you know, we add those as conditions, like close the garage
Well,
door.
that's what I'm wondering. That's not covered.
That's definitely not covered.
Okay,
The
I-
hours of operation really sort of are covered in the code, but you know, you can talk about those. I
Hours of
guess.
operation ought to be. in
Yeah,
place.
exactly.
Well, I mean, they have to close at 1 AM. Now, we don't have to, if they wanted to open at 10 o'clock, that would not be prohibited by the zoning code, and we don't care. They tell us they're gonna open at 11. I don't think would want to restrict them to opening at 11 if they decided they wanted to open at 10:30.
Well, let's do this. Let me ask you a couple of things, see if they're
Okay.
covered.
All right.
And if they have no problem with it, or you have no problem with it, do it. No outdoor public address system amplifier speakers are permitted on the applicant's property. That's not covered by the code, right? No outdoor.
What number?
I think
No
it-
outdoor public address system.
So they don't want like billiard tables, right?
Right.
What you could do, we have amplified music, but I would say that amplified sounds might be a way to address that.
Well, the previous one said no outdoor public address system amplifiers or speakers are permitted on the applicant's property.
So the previous one, those conditions were in response to the addition of an outside service area,
Question.
which they're not proposing.
Could we ask the applicant if they'd be okay with having that condition in there with the outside ambulance?
I'm sure that they
He's
would
already
say
said
that's
he didn't
fine.
have any problem.
They're not gonna play music for people walking on.
We're actually talking about. And part of it too.
Mhm.
Well, nowadays, it's all done by. And so,
Right.
to us, it's a complete.
So you wouldn't have any problem with it.
None at all.
So would anybody here have any problem?
No, not at all. Yeah.
All right, so we'll add that.
Nice safe one there, Dale.
Yeah, so I guess Dale, the only thing I'd ask is
How about, oh, go ahead.
just which ones you are suggesting.
Yeah,
you want.
these are ones I am suggesting.
So if you could just give me the number you're going through.
Well, I think we're gonna need to read them so everybody knows what it is, because I don't have them in front of me anymore. I
All right.
gave mine away and neither to some of the
All right.
other members.
That was number 24 outside addresses. Number 26, it needs to be changed. All exterior windows and doors except those used in the takeout area shall be closed by 11 PM.
Yeah, so I think that's understood by all the members that they're gonna close those doors by 11.
So is it covered in the code?
No,
Then-
that's the one that everyone says is important. That's
Then,
gonna be made a
okay.
condition. Yeah. So
And
what
then you
else?
can do the internal speakers directed inside just to have it.
Interior speakers in the building shall be 28. Interior speakers in the building shall be directed toward interior space and away from any exterior door, window, or wall. Do you have any problem with that?
They don't.
Remember, they said that they've got the
Gotcha.
doors that are gonna slide up.
Gotcha. Number 36, designated managers shall be on site during all hours of operation.
That's the law.
That is the law?
That's the law.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we don't need that. And then number 38. During periods of normal operation shall remove trash along blah, blah, blah. The outside trash, loose trash removal shall occur in the morning before 9 AM and the early evening before 6 PM.
So is that a concern that's related to outside service areas, the trash?
No, it's just trash in
General
general.
cleanup.
Just, how does that jive with our current code?
Right now, it's in the morning.
There is one, I think they have to clear it before 8 o'clock, if I'm correct.
I mean, I do before 8 and then I do it at 1 o'clock in the morning. So if anybody does.
It's
want to-
required.
So it's closing. You're saying rather.
Let's say closing. not this is-
Number 38. You have any problem with doing it twice? You said you- Town says 9, I believe.
I mean, if we have to keep it at 9, we will, but I
You-
can make it 10.
I think we
You
should,
don't want people to have to come into, well, I don't know.
We
maybe-
can't
maybe I
change the
shouldn't
law.
speak for
What is
the
it?
town.
The law says by 9, is that right?
I'm sure it says at least by 9, if not by 8. Jim
I
looking it
think
up
it's,
now.
I think it's at 8 o'clock, but it's required from all businesses that they have to clean up the front of their property on Route 1 at a certain time. It's either 8 or 9, and I'm trying to find that code section.
So it sounds like it's covered though, and
Yeah, but
It is,
the only
it is
thing,
covered.
the only thing we're asking is that it be also done at closing.
so you
It
want,
doesn't, we don't have any.
I know.
okay, so you want to just say.
We
you
wanna
wanna
add
a
and-
trash
and
cleanup
close.
at closing. So just say trash cleanup at closing.
And at closing.
Well, just say closing because they're already required to clean up in the mornings. We're not gonna, we can't tell them they don't have to
Okay.
clean up.
Okay, all
Until-
right, I got
Mhm.
you. Then, okay, that was done. And that's it?
all right.
Additional one.
So based on what anybody's heard here, do we have any more public comments before I close the public hearing? I'm looking in the room here. I see none. I see Kate has, right, I got you, Gary. Kate says she has someone, so who is it? It's Gary. There you go. You're up, Commissioner Persinger.
Okay, this is a general question for council. I know you have seemed to have made a decision to cite the specific section of the code that may apply. I think you've done that already for outside service areas. And I'll just use that as an example. I think there are 4 subpoints that apply to outside service areas. So if you just list it in the code and the code is subsequently changed after the conditional use is approved, would any changes that are subsequently approved apply to someone who got a conditional use approval with the code as it exists right now? I think, we changed the code with respect to parking. And I know there's at least one business in town just said, okay, well, fine, we're not subject to that any longer. So, we can use the parking area as we choose. So again, my question is directed at council there. I'm just not sure what the answer is.
Well, that raises a potential, I guess, argument that the condition, if it's applied, is not varied by the change in the law later on. So we could, if we refer to it by site, we could add language that's compliance with the existing section or any amendments there too is required. I mean, would there be an argument that you might want to see the condition applied even though the council were to change the law and relax it in some way at a future date? does that make sense? Does that question, is that a concern that we would impose a condition by reference and then if that condition no longer appeared in the code, let's say you eliminated it, would you be concerned as a commissioner that that restaurant no longer had to comply with that restriction?
It's not a matter of concern for me. It's just a matter of clarification. I would just like to understand, what applies. Because I think we've done it both ways. I think we have referred to a specific section of the code, and we've also listed specific points within the code that are in a specific section without, just referencing the section. So it's just not clear to me if, in terms of a future change, what the situation is and what the applicant is bound to. And I think it's like clarification. So it's not a matter of concern for me. It's just more a matter of clarification.
So if we do it by reference, then I think my position would be if council were to change the code requirement or eliminate the code requirement, that condition would no longer apply. Because we're saying you've got to comply with the law. And if the law changes, then you no longer have to go on complying with the old law. That's the way I would look at it. If you add it as a condition expressly, then changing the law may not relieve the applicant from the condition.
Let me take Jim Deeds first.
Okay, we do have some code sections that deal with commercial establishments, and it is kind of interesting. It's under 138-2 sidewalks and gutters. Commercial establishments shall cause the sidewalks and gutters adjacent to their establishments to be swept at least one time per day before 7 a.m. When the establishment is open for business. And the proprietor shall cause to be maintained in a clean and neat condition all sidewalks adjacent to parking lots to said commercial establishments. Then there's another section which talks about which 138.3 establishments from which food or beverages are sold. The proprietor and or owners of all commercial establishments from which food or beverage are sold or dispensed shall cause the sidewalks adjacent to their establishments to be washed each Monday, Friday, and the day following any legal holiday before noon, whenever such establishment is open for business. So they do comment on this. So there are some requirements. I'm not sure that all of our establishments are doing this, but it's in our code.
I'm not sure that the town realized.
Well, so it is before 7 o'clock. I think you need to clean up.
Yeah, there's some definite cleanup needed there, but at least it's in there.
Okay.
And then we also still have the public hearing open, and Mr. Spence has come back to want to make a comment. First of all, Mr. Commissioner Persinger, are you done with your comments?
Yeah, I did. Again, my question is just one of clarification, and it's something we may have to deal with when we take this up next week at the town council level.
Thank you. All right. So Mr. Persinger, or Commissioner Persinger is done. So we'll look to Mr. Spence at this point.
I don't want to delay this any further. All I would observe is that if the town council were to amend the zoning code to remove one of the conditions in that particular section, then I think all the restaurant, and because that's what this applies to, the restaurant operators would have the right to take the view that the code's been amended, that they don't have to comply with the condition that was imposed that was more stringent than the code requires at that point in time. But that's for another day.
Yes, thank you.
I'm still an advocate of the cite to the code, and that's enough, but
Right.
you can make your own recommendation.
All right.
We can say as amended. And
Yeah, the code's amended.
Mhm.
You're just suggesting if the code's amended, they need to comply with the.
Well, I don't know. I guess if you think about that longer, maybe if it's amended in a more stringent way, that could, so I think that we can get, this is probably a rabbit hole that we're not going to be able to find a way out of today.
All right. So we'll close, looking for any more public comments. Kate, any virtual? Nothing. Public here in the room, anybody want to say anything? See none. We're going to close the public hearing, and now we're going to look for a motion for the ordinance and some conditions or whatever. So anybody want to make a motion to start it off?
So I'll I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance with the suggested changes that we've gone through. With the amendments that we've discussed.
All right, and Fred's got a list of those and he shook his head yes. So now we're looking for a second. That'd be Mr. Jimmy O'Connor. And so now we're in discussion amongst the commissioners. I have no comments.
So
No comment.
we're voting to recommend approval of the ordinance with the typographical corrections that were brought to our attention by Mr. Spence, plus the 3 additional conditions, and then the existing language in the ordinance.
And the
Makes,
amendment.
right. Mhm.
All right, so that clarifies that by our council. And now we're looking for votes by each commissioner. We'll start with Mr. Rutherford.
Yes.
Jimmy? Yes. Dave?
Yes.
Mike Harmer, yes.
Dale Cook, yes.
And that's the unanimous vote with the commissioners here today. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the rezoning.
So I would just add that I think it's apparent, or I believe you all need to conclude that additionally, you don't see there's any adverse impact on neighboring properties, any significant impact on traffic, parking, or noise that would interfere with you with your positive consideration of that ordinance. Right. Those
I
are
think it'd be
those are the
better.
things that commissioners are going to have to apply during their public hearing.
I think that's implied. I look for the commissioners here, planning and zoning commissioners, to, I guess, each of you can make a statement. You agree with Fred, what Mr. Townsend just stated, and Dave. So if you take a note, Mr. Townsend suggested that we.
So if I could, so with respect to
Go-
chapter
go.
144, there's a separate set of considerations. So this applicant needs a certificate of compliance to operate a restaurant, and considerations for them. This does not apply to an existing restaurant. They already have that, but a certificate of compliance with respect to this applicant requires a finding on our part that the new establishment would not be a detriment to the peace, order, and quiet of the neighborhood in which the establishment is located. It is not posing or will not pose an adverse impact on neighboring properties, considering the impacts on traffic, parking, and noise. And it's not apparent that any false representation has been made by the applicant. That sounds like it. So those are general considerations which a vote to recommend approval would include or imply they would.
You saying
Yes.
you'd like us to express that?
No, I think just an affirmation from you at this point.
Okay, I think that, when we go through these approvals, we're implying and recognizing your statements, and I will say that, Dale,
Yeah,
you agree? Mr. Lyons,
I think
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed and understood.
My questions were answered, yeah.
Jimmy, and Mr. Rutherford?
Yeah, my questions were answered, and looking at the growth of this town, it's I'm excited.
Excellent. Thank you all. And now we'll go to the rezoning. Let me get my paperwork straight. And then we'll take a little stretch break after that. If you guys just want to stretch your legs in a minute. Let's get this rezoning out of the way. Should be pretty simple. This is you guys should have this package here. It's like this, and there's an ordinance I'll give to you for that, changing zoning designation. So here you go, 1, 2, 3.
Mr. Spence, thank you.
You already
Yeah, we have it.
Okay,
Yeah.
you did.
We got it.
Okay, perfect. All right,
Steve, thank you.
thank you all.
Oh, I'm on- I have 2 more.
Okay, so right now we are looking, we are going into open the public hearing on the application to rezone tax map parcel 334-20-18-115.00 located at 106 Reed Avenue, Dewey Beach, from resort business RB2 to resort residential along the proposed ordinance to rezone to said parcel and amend the comprehensive plan map accordingly Public hearing is open for that. And we have our applicant's materials, the letter dated June 20th, 2022, and the ordinance that is in front of each planning and zoning commissioner for discussion. So the first thing we'll do is turn to town hall. That'd be Jim Dedes and Mr. Zolfer to comment.
Okay, back in June, the town manager received an application.
Jim, could you speak up a little
Oh,
bit?
excuse me. I believe it was back in June, we received notification from Mr. Spence that there was a desire to have the property owners of Jeff and Mrs. Gosner to have a rezoning request on a particular lot, which was, I believe.
They just cited the lot.
Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, it was from resort business to a resort residential. We met with them, we discussed the application, and we were very supportive initially of the request. I took the liberty of filling out some information that Mr. Spence gave us, and we sent it over to the Plus Committee, which is operated under the Office of State Planning, and it's the Preliminary Land Use Survey Committee, which is required for any rezoning request. It was preliminary, but when I discussed with our liaison with the Plus Committee, they recommended submit it early. This way, if there are any issues that we have, it'll be taken care of and it'll be brought up. On August 24th, there was a public hearing set up by the Plus Committee at 10 o'clock. It was a virtual meeting. And the presentation was made regarding the rezoning request. And we went through the various agencies that commented, and there was absolutely no objection to it. I haven't received the actual letter, but they were recommending that it be approved. So that's a hurdle that we have to submit. The next step after this, of course, is it goes before the town commissioners for their review and public comment. It'll again go back to the Plus Committee for a final, and then we would have to do a resolution adopting the change. So that's where we are with that. And as a neighbor, Town Hall is a neighbor of this
Yes.
rezoning. We have no objections. We think it will improve the area. And actually, for having a resort business district off the highway is it's literally impossible. And I say that from some business experience. It's hard to get a business to work that doesn't have access on the main highway. So we're in favor of that. So I think it will enhance our community.
Thank you, Mr. Zolfer. You have any comments?
No, I agree with Jim Dedes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Mr. Townsend?
Just a quick thing. So I don't know the history of this exactly, but at some point when the comprehensive plan maps were adopted, a number of properties that had been used historically as strictly residential properties and had been approved in very modest ways years and years ago, found themselves, unbeknownst to them, designated in the RB2 district, which required commercial on the first floor. And this is one of those properties. Some applications have come before us. This group, the makeup of this group has changed. I mean, Mr. Redifer is brand new to the group. Many of you have not heard applications like this before. Mr. Cook, I think you have in one capacity or another, but we've had some people come to us and say, hey, I was shocked to find that, yeah, I want to renovate my cottage. I want to actually demolish it and put up something new. And the zoning code requires us to make commercial use of the first floor. Right. So those applications have been received favorably by the town, by the community and others. I guess the notion was that more of a Main Street kind of a planning might be successful, and now we have the benefit of experience, and certain of these properties are probably never going to be, or it wouldn't be appropriate to require them to operate commercial uses on the first floor. So this is another of those circumstances.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. I personally couldn't agree with you more on that. And right now, I guess we're going to hear the applicant. Well, first of all, any planning and zoning commissioners have any comments before we go to Mr. Spence? See none. Mr. Spence, you're up. And then we'll go virtual after we get through people in the room.
So for your convenience, I had your audiovisual assistant put up on the screen a picture of the survey that we've included with our application, which happens to show the existing old arcade building that's about to be torn down that we just spent time talking about, which is the 100 block. The subject parcel for which the rezoning application square foot parcel that is on Reed Avenue that's 125 by 50. That's a specific parcel. For purposes of analysis, if you were to walk over there, it's roughly from the middle of the tower sign through the property to the right is what this parcel is. It's a little because the the parking lot takes up a significant area of the 100-foot area on other parcels. A little confusing to look at, but roughly from the middle of the vertical sign that is the grotto sign through the back is the size of this parcel. It was purchased in 2021 by Mr. and Mrs. Gosnell, who were both here, and their general concept was the same as just been described to you by the officials from Town Hall. Was that because the design and planning stage was going on for the new Grotto Pizza restaurant, and to utilize the 100 by 100 foot parcel the way we've shown it and recommended approval of, that there really wouldn't be any need because of the change in the zoning code for required parking. And historically, I think if I were to put up Mr. Gosnell, maybe I will do that actually, is they ask him to tell you a little bit about the lack of use of the parking lot. I have personal experience, although it's dated now because I was there working on a day-to-day basis from 2005 to 2009, which was during the day, the parking lot was never really full. And in the evenings, it was never really full.
Same case now, it seems to be.
And even today, that's largely the case. The people who do park there are typically going someplace else. I use me as the example. I used to like to park there at night, even when I would ask permission at least before doing that to go out to the restaurants or the bars, as the case may be. But in any event, parking. I think we've all learned over the course of the last 10 or 15 years that the need for large parking areas is fairly limited. And that has been the experience with Crowders. Most of their customer base is on foot. They're coming in, they're coming out. Not much is coming in the way of needs for parking. So their hope is to have this property rezoned to at some date. And I don't know whether there's still an internal debate going on between the two of them as to when and what would be built there. But I think there's been lots of discussion about building a residence they could live in. And that's why we're here asking for permission to do this. If it's helpful to you, I think I could have Mr. Gosnell just generally describe the lack of use of the parking lot. But I do think it's a correct statement to say that once, if the new restaurant is developed, having an RB2 zone property right behind it would be very difficult to put a commercial retail establishment on the first floor and actually have that be successful. And so why not change it to RR, let it be a residence. The new building as proposed will have the required setbacks. So we're not infringing on that. And they would like to have the opportunity to have it rezoned. And hopefully the preliminary discussion you heard is about the change in the comprehensive plan, because you have to make a technical amendment to the comprehensive plan to allow that. But that process is occurring, as you heard. Plus didn't apparently have any objection to doing that. And so we're hoping that you would recommend to the commissioners that they could approve this one lot of the 6,250 square feet to be rezoned. One other example is out on the council mentioned to you is on Rodney Ave. There were a number of parcels that when the zoning code was amended back in 2009, there were a number of parcels that were zoned RB2. A whole group of property owners, I think it was 5 parcels, all came to town and asked to be rezoned back to RR. They were successfully done. New construction occurred. I can only think of 2 significantly large residential homes that were built there, but the other existing properties may just be sitting there. But that's an example where the town has done this before I don't think it should be a difficult decision to recommend it. Thank you. And
I don't think it's necessary unless any commissioners want to hear any more testimony about that, because I think we all know that parking lot. Anybody want
Yeah.
to hear what he has to say?
I'm happy to have him talk about
It's
it.
best, it's just, it's not one lot that's being split, it is two lots.
Oh, it's already separate parcels, yes. Yes, they have remained separate parcels.
You're welcome to come up, but I don't think we care. So at this point. All right, there we go. Anybody else in the room want to comment? See none. Kate, you got anybody online? David, this is your chance. Going once, going twice, going three. All right, it's a rezone. I see no comment from you. David, thank you very much for all your help anyway on all the things you do for us. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And now you have the ordinance in front of you. I will note that there is a statement where it says, whereas a public hearing was conducted by town council on September 16th, 2022 in anticipation of this coming next week. And obviously time is of essence with all the supply chain issues all the world's having. So they took the liberty to put that in front of us like that. We recognize that there is a town council meeting going to happen later in a few days. So we're looking for a motion to approve the ordinance for the rezoning as we all discussed and as stated in the ordinance in front of you. Anybody want to make a
I'll
motion?
make the motion.
Mr. Rutherford, a second. Anybody?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lyons. All right, so any discussion? I see none.
Yeah, I'll make a comment. I think with what Mr. Spence said about the struggles of a commercial behind, hopefully a new restaurant, and knowing that this town strives off transfer tax and building permits, this is something that would be a great asset to the town.
Yep, I agree. So thank you. Anyone else want to make a comment? If not, we have a motion on the table. So Mr. Rutherford,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mike Harmer, yes?
Good for the town, good for the owners, and I just wish the town had bought the property. I vote yes.
Yeah, really. Would have been good.
late.
Yep. All right. Thank you all very much. All right. Yeah, here, you got it. Next application is let's see, conditional use, construction operate. Let's see, we got the Brados. Hearing. Yeah, we got the rezone. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break to stretch. Yeah, and now we're at Jimmy's Grill.
Jimmy's Grill.
And hold on, before we break, we're gonna have Jimmy's gonna beg out. And
Anyway, so I'm gonna head out.
you got a recruit on the Starboard Claw Raw too, right? Is Starboard Raw gonna go today? Look, I see Monty here. You are going,
He was here.
yes,
Oh, here, there.
but is your application up today? 'Cause- Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's any business, not just Starboard Raw, right?
Well, Jimmy's Grill and Starboard Raw is what we're hearing. So if you're not gonna hear either, you're out.
I mean, I would love to hear both of them, but if I can't discuss it and you don't want my vote, then you
Mhm.
want nothing.
Right, right.
I mean, but it's not just one specific business, it's all
No, it's the expansions. Yeah.
of it.
Okay, so they're
I-
both expansions.
So
So he's out, right? Okay. He's recusing. He's, Jimmy, I know, we appreciate, thank you for, yeah, you got you. Okay, so now we're taking a 5-minute break. We'll be back at. Back at. 12:05. Ish.
We're still live.
Yeah, we're still live, everybody. Yep. Yeah. Next one we're gonna hear is Jimmy's Grill. Thanks, Fred. Hey.
So Bill, when we get to the commissioners level, the commissioners, I think will know, and I'll make it clear that they need to express, themselves thoroughly when it comes. Yeah, I'll send them out. Okay.
Yes. Back, resuming here. All right. Jimmy's Grill.
I don't.
Oh, and then we'll.
Well, coming in. You want to watch it?
Oh.
You moved the donut, the answer underneath, that's what I'm doing now. Oh, those two were still good with.
Where were the other two sitting?
Right back at the coffee pot.
Oh, my.
So I got, I'm gonna have pest control put in Monday.
Good.
Awesome. Hey, thank you.
Supporting materials.
Yes, I gave you the ordinance. And if you need a package,
Yeah, sorry about that. Telling you my name, that's ours. That's okay.
if you need a package, there's a package right there. Do you need a couple for these guys?
Jimmy brought it to me.
There's and Dale, if I gave you all.
Third time.
Three, take one down, pass it around there, Dave. Jimmy's not here, so you only need.
I need to give you one back.
All right. All right, we're gonna get back started here, and I will read the package that we're looking at now is Jimmy's Grill. We're gonna open the public hearing to let's see, discuss and vote, make a recommendation about a draft ordinance regarding conditional use permit, an application for a restaurant permit of compliance to expand conditional use for Jimmy's Grill located at 1911 Coastal Highway. At this point, we'll go ahead and open the no, this is the public hearing's open for that at this point. And I think we'll go to the commissioners, P and Z commissioners. I don't have any comments myself. Do you guys got any comments to start? I don't see any. We'll turn to town hall, Jim Deeds and Mr. Zulfer. Do you have any discussion to start with?
Our discussion is we're very pleased that they complied with all of our requests. And the application is definitely in order. They're under the 4,000 square foot limit, patron area, so parking is not required, and we have no objections to the applicants and expansion of premises, the amendment to expand premises.
All right, so town hall has no objections and is pleased with the application and Mr. Zulfer concur.
Yes.
All right. And Mr. Townsend, do you have any comments before we talk to Mr. Spence who's for the applicant?
Nothing.
All right, so we have this ordinance in front of us. Each of you, I put in front of you the ordinance. I don't know if I passed them on your end. Do you have one? You don't have it, right?
The ordinance, man, just.
Yeah, let me get that to you. Let's see. Ordinance for. This is the Jimmy's Grill.
So-
Here it is.
Just for the record, Mr. O'Connor is recusing himself on the remaining applications that are on our agenda. I think we may, what do we have? We have 7 members of this group.
Yes, there's 7
Mhm.
and Mr. Norquist is out today. Mr. Belicki is out and Jimmy has recused himself, but we still have a quorum.
All right.
All right, so with that being said, Mr. Spence, you're up. Just tell us what's going on, and we think we do. It's pretty simple. We're the back parking lot behind it, it's outdoor seating. We have all the information. It's town halls very told us that they have no issues with it. And so that tells us that it's Hey, we got all the paperwork we need, but go ahead. You're up to tell us what,
So,
the question is, why don't you just explain what they're doing, just for the
Right.
record?
well, again,
This is Mr. Spence for them.
yeah, Steve Spence, I represent Highway One Limited Partnership and Jimmy's Grill Dewey Beach LLC. Highway One owns the land and is the landlord, and Jimmy's Grill Dewey Beach is the operator, restaurant operator, and has been for a number of years. The first picture that's up on the screen for you is an example of what we're proposing to do. And we submitted separate versions. This is the first version we submitted, which is not accurate as to its dimensional distances. But it is correct to say that we are only asking for permission to serve and enclose an area of a total of 2,000 square feet. It just isn't quite accurately depicted in that picture. There is a later survey that we submitted that does accurately depict the size and shape. And but that gives you a good representation of what we intend to do. These are typically 4 tops throughout the area, and it's 16 4 tops. And it's in what has historically been the same space. Actually, it'll be a little smaller than the space that we've been using under the governor's emergency order, because we've been using most of the parking lot. Now it'll be small. As you can see in the back side of that picture, on the west side, there'll be an open area of the 50 feet for parking and deliveries to get in and out. And the only thing that's a little unusual that we were hoping that you would consider doing is making or recommending the approval of the ordinance as I submitted. I think town council may have submitted his own version. My version is a little more extensive because under the recent legislation passed by the General Assembly, in Title IV, there's a set of subsections that have been added that facilitate the approval of an expansion or retention of an expansion into an outside service area, that if it meets certain standards, that the ABCC will not require us to go through a second public hearing process to get approval for a permanent outdoor service area license for that particular area. And I believe in our application that we submitted, the proposed ordinance has a whereas in it on page 2 at the top. It says on the SWS draft of 7/5/22. I don't know whether you have that in front of you or not, but we're asking that some findings be made, which are largely obvious. But I thought I'd just read through them very quickly, because if we can get the ordinance approved in this fashion, then I believe when we submit that, the ABCC will allow us to expand our licensed area without the need for advertising in public hearings. So I'll just read through them. It says no extension of the premises for the outside service area is beyond the property boundaries as requested. Well, that's the case.
That's the one we do have in front of us.
That's good.
It's not on page 2 though. It's,
Oh, it may have printed differently.
yeah, see, right here, because no extension.
There you
So
go.
where
Sorry.
No extension. So you guys see where I'm talking about, page 1, where I was.
Yeah, I thought in my print it was on page 1.
Oh,
Very
okay.
good.
I think the one I gave you also, Fred, is the one he's reading from.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Correct.
Okay.
All right, very good. So that's that group of A through H.
Okay. We've got all that.
And the reason we included those is because the Title IV statute that deals with that subject says if the town makes those findings, then we at the ABCC will not require, as I said, the typical requirement, by the way, for an expansion of a liquor license at any level statewide is that if you're going to increase the area you use for service, you have to make an application, do a public advertisement in 2 newspapers for several issues, and mail to everybody within, in this particular case, within 1,000 feet of the property, which costs collectively about $1,200. Well, forget the application fee. The actual mailing and advertising costs about $1,200 to do. And so in the last session of the General Assembly, they added this subsection that if you want to maintain an outside service area that was permitted in the context of the emergency orders, if the town will make these various findings and impose on you, for example, compliance with ADA, then if you can establish that when you apply for our permission at the ABCC to continue this use, we won't make you do that advertising in the public hearing.
And this says that, this is what you
Well,
need.
we're asking, I'm gonna
Okay,
talk
this
about,
is what you need.
yes, I'm gonna talk about it briefly. I've given you the language that I need. I was just gonna walk through it very briefly.
Before you do,
Yes,
was this copy advertised?
It's
In
it's
the,
my understanding that this is what Cape Town Hall made copies of us for, so it must be the one that was
it
posted.
was certainly included in my application from the very
I
beginning.
just don't want
Yeah.
somebody to
So-
say, well, you didn't have.
Right, so
It was advertised. I
in my,
think.
it may have been advertised, but even if it wasn't, in my
Hold
view.
on, let's see what Kate said.
All right.
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Oh, yeah, this was included in my original application.
Yeah,
There's
it's-
nothing new.
It was on the town
It's just
commission.
unusual in terms of why we're doing. it.
Right.
I'm sorry. At any rate, I was gonna, the A is no extension of the premises for outside service areas beyond the property boundaries. That's true. The total patron area for the premises outside and inside will not exceed a total of 4,000 square feet. That's this code requirement, the Dewey Code. The extension does not intrude on any state or local streets or rights of way. There were some emergency expansions that did that, but not in Dewey generally, and it's not the case here. We're not using any public right of way. The extension does not restrict access to the restaurant for deliveries, trash removal, or any emergency services, thus pointing to that example up there where there's going to be plenty of room to be able to get our deliveries back in and emergency services if needed on the back half of the lot. The restaurant will comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. We are required to do that regardless, but we will. The restaurant will continue to adhere to all local noise ordinances, which is also true. And we're bound to do that. Just the outside service area will be restricted by entrance and exit controls, fencing, and sufficient staff to control the distribution of alcoholic beverages. You can impose that on us as a condition if you want, but that's what we intend to do. Access to the outside service area will be restricted by entrance and exit controls, fencing, and sufficient staff to control the distribution of alcoholic beverages. We intend to do that. You can certainly condition your approval on that.
Isn't that required by the ABCC?
It is.
Yeah,
It
that's
is.
what I thought. I mean, you have to control the.
Yes, you have to control the
ABCC.
And we'll have to take a building permit out, for example, to put our fence up. We have had a snow fence up now, but we will now put a fence up that will be compliant. And then the right to continue the approved amended and conditional use shall be without any expiration. That's me putting in something that contemplates. So other than that, I don't have anything really to add. I think we tried to do our best to comply with the original application, and we hope that you'll recommend approval.
I
And
just have one question, for you, sir.
Yes.
Are you requesting additional seating to what's outside now, or is this just a formalizing what the?
it's actually, I think, less seating. I think right now, the temporary we have is the entire parking lot. Now it's going to be only 50 foot in depth. So it's actually going to be less seating. I say that, if you've gone in there, you see that we don't have that same configuration
Right.
going on now, but it is going to be contained within, self-contained within that 50 by 40.
Okay.
So I shouldn't say whether it's less or more, except that it will clearly be contained within that smaller area.
Right. And the occupancy is,
That's driven by fire marshal. We can't exceed fire marshal requirements,
answer my question now. That's
Yep.
perfect. Thank you.
and we won't.
All right, so, Fred, do you want to say anything?
So, the applicant makes a submission which represents the area that they want to expand into and provides a floor plan. So any approval of that ordinance would by reference include this depiction, meaning that they wouldn't be permitted to occupy or allow for more patron area than is provided for in their application. Is the seating plan dated 7/1/2022?
This is the.
That's inside.
This is the existing. Jimmy's Grill.
Oh, it is. All right.
That's
So
inside. There is a plan that I believe we submitted.
Right, it's in there, right, it should be right.
does it have the red
It's in the
around it?
front, towards the front, the blue.
It's the blue.
Mr. Sprague.
Well, that's not what they intend to.
No, what they're proposing is.
There's one other screen I
16
think.
tables,
Not that.
Yeah.
It's not this.
16 tables, with four.
Yeah.
Four.
Oh, that's the one right there. I'm
I
sorry.
believe that's it.
Yeah.
It's in the packet.
It's in the package. Yeah, it's in the package. It's.
Yeah, the red one. That's,
Oh, okay.
right.
No, here it is.
Would it be the red one? I don't think so.
This is really what they're proposing.
It's Panoni.
Yeah.
It's a banana.
It's on the screen now. This is the last filing that we submitted down there. On a plan of what it would do, and showing the actual correctness of that. That was the request that Chow made of it, to submit something more than that original, what I call hand drawing. But that's the capacity that we've requested.
That's the official one right there.
That's correct. And it's part of the original application, or it was a supplement to the original application.
So that's.
I believe that many of them are round, but I think they are maximized at 4.
They're depicted as 4 tops.
Correct,
And the capacity to be for 64
correct,
patrons.
correct.
There it is.
Yeah, it was a supplemental piece.
All right, perfect. So V dash 0001. Yeah, this drawing right here. Yeah. Jack, it's the last page is Dave stated.
Doesn't matter.
All right, so the way we did, I think we did the way we did the one at Mama Maria's where we had, reference the code, and I'm thinking that might be the direction we go, but first let's finish the public hearing. Anyone in the room want to talk about Jimmy's Grill anymore? Any comments? And now we look for public comment on virtual from Kate. Is anybody out there? All right, so
Hello?
we're looks like David's going to chime in. Mr. Muskowitz?
Yeah, I speak in favor of Jimmy's getting outdoor dining. I believe it made the town look better and it's a great thing for the town. The only thing that's very strange or odd is dueling ordinances. I understand Mr. Spence wrote his own, but it's just not clear, like, does his ordinance amend existing conditions? Because the summary says it's in addition to, but certain conditions are a bit different. The final floor and final site plan shall be submitted and complied with at all times are not there. And then it's supposed to be no speakers on the exterior of the building. Now it's changed to the outdoor service area. So does that include both? I think it makes much more sense to use the town version of the ordinance, which is cleaner. And so there's no surprises, and just add on to that code, because you may be agreeing to something you don't realize may change the existing 609. And again, I'm for Jimmy's. I believe what they've done is great. You just want to keep it like that. And it's just strange there's dueling ordinances. And most people from the public would probably open the Jimmy's ordinance that the town posted, which is highlighted proposed ordinance, not go through the packet and look for Mr. Spence's ordinance, which might encounter different legal outcomes.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Muskowitz. I'll help you guys out here on the commissioners in a second to try to show you what's going on with this. Any other comments virtually? All right, so the original ordinance from the town did, as Mr. Muskowitz pointed out, I'm not sure who's going to make the motion. I'll lean to Dale here and I'll show him what we're talking about. But there's the original one had no extension, had that stuff in there, So yeah. So what I'm thinking is we might just do something like.
Could I ask a question along these lines of Mr. Spence?
Okay.
I had a discussion with you about this very subject, and I can't remember where we came down on the issue of these, I'll call them the Title IV A through H considerations. I don't find any of them to be a concern, but can we, if we were to grab those and insert them in our existing or our proposed ordinance, would that, are you capable of saying whether that meets your satisfaction? Or
If I could take a few minutes to look at the town's version, because I'm struggling to find it in my packet here. I could comment on that. I'd give it a few minutes.
Actually, the one that I have that was posted is the same one that we're looking at. So
I think that they mirror, I think they're very close to one another. I don't think Mr. Spence reworded the entire ordinance. I think he's mostly inserted this language at A through H. And the A through H language is not language that we would always be sensitive to because we don't enforce the ABCC laws, right? Mr. Spence set this up by saying that there's a minimum $1,200 expense without legal fees and time constraints that's imposed upon an applicant who wants to expand their existing patron area unless the body that grants the local zoning body makes findings that are specified in A through H. I think we can talk about it, but I don't think any of these findings are at all controversial for this board to make. And in fact, we would probably be doing all our applicants a favor if we put it in for them. And Mr. Spence graciously said he does not object to us doing that, using his work to benefit others. So if you need more time.
The version that you has already incorporated all the requests that I was making.
That's correct. Yes.
And then the only thing that's unusual about all this is that we don't have an outside service area now, so we're adding one. And but this follows along with the discussion we were having earlier today about the law applies, the section A3 applies. We have to close at 11, we have to clear the area by 11. You haven't added that, but I'm not going to tell you that if that's what you want to use. I don't have any particular objection. Your version, as long as it incorporates those findings. So if you want to recommend that, I don't have.
So, but you don't object to us adding reference to the code provisions that apply to outside areas?
No, I mean, we believe they apply.
Right.
So you're adding chapter 1,
Well,
adding reference to.
Well, you all, in making the motion, could recommend that we cite the code provision that applies, which we generally like we did before.
Yeah.
Right. The only other question I have, it's not the only other question. Number one, I think all of this, for all these outdoor areas, seating is going to be good for the town and good for patrons and good for business. And I think all of that adds up to a great idea to do. Dad, do you have any problem with adding cleanup and closing like we did?
No.
You don't have any problem with that?
Absolutely not.
Was there any other thing that we had for the other restaurants that we should add here?
Okay, I think.
Oh, no smoking.
Yeah.
No smoking.
I don't have any idea whether we even permitted outside smoking. No, yeah.
You have no problem. We add that. That's what we did to the rest of the restaurant.
The only comment I don't have any objection. I was going to say, if you do that, you drive people to smoke on your streets, but whatever. Doesn't matter to me. Yeah.
Hopefully, little by little, we'll close that down.
Exactly.
Well, that's all specified in.
So what you're basically saying is you're gonna follow the conditions that you did for Mama Maria's and so forth, the similar conditions.
Correct.
Right.
Is it,
Well, I didn't come away from the Mama Maria's hearing understanding exactly what was happening.
Right.
But if you want to ask me individually, I'm happy to agree or disagree.
So,
I mean, I realize we're asking, and the town has been very accommodating in trying to get these public hearings held and determined by as early as next weekend. And so to the extent that the commission makes a recommendation on a particular form of ordinance and the council can get it to me sometime this week, if I have any questions, I can take them up with the commissioners. I'm not going to try to limit you so much as accelerate the process through the end if possible, because I think this is something that's good and can be done. And to the extent there's something I don't understand about the version that's submitted for recommendation, And then I
That's the other
can, I
question.
can make my point at the next hearing.
Again, the version has been advertised correctly,
Yeah, that's.
the original version.
This version we're hearing.
I know we can make changes, what, in the.
Right.
This is what
Okay.
Kate's saying.
All right, okay.
Well, it was posted. I mean, but there's flexibility between what
I
is
know we can-
originally
yeah, I
posted
got
and what finally gets
I got you.
considered.
I'll sit, but
I just don't want,
Thank you, Steve.
I don't want somebody coming back out of the clear blue valid complaint saying we didn't advertise what we were gonna do.
This is posted, and it's certainly well within the bounds of
Right.
what our charge is, which is to consider whether to condition these approvals
Got it.
and.
And so, you know, Dale or whoever makes the motion, you'd cite the code. Plus the few conditions that we do, Mama Maria.
Yeah,
Do you have the 6 that we put on there?
On Mama Maria?
Yeah, for your-
No, I don't. I mean, I do, but
that's not, he's not agreeing.
No, I know he's not great. They'll read them and just remember.
so,
Try to remember.
if I have this right,
Yes, six items.
no smoking, no live entertainment, clear the patrons. At 11, sufficient bathroom facilities.
Yeah.
Clean up in the morning, comply with existing conditions. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious that a granting of an expansion to operate in this outside area doesn't relieve Jimmy's Grill from complying with any existing condition that applies to their restaurant. So.
Thank you, Fred. So looking in the room, there's no more comments and I don't see anybody who wants to comment. You're welcome to. And I see none. Kate, we see any more virtual out there? All right. So with that being said, we'll close the public hearing and now we're with the Planning and Zoning Commissioners discussion. I have nothing to say. Anything? Nobody? All right. Now we're going to look for a motion to recommend the ordinance and however you want to put it with the other 6 conditions we just talked about.
So I'll try this. I make a motion that we adopt the ordinance as presented, what is presented here with the additions that we've discussed with.
Cite the code section.
We'll cite the code sections plus the other additions we've cited.
That I
for
just read.
that. Yeah, you were just
Smoking
right.
and cleaning up at closing.
All right, so that's Dave Lyons's motion. We need a second.
I'll second.
And that's Mr. Rutherford for the second. And any discussion? Have none. At that point, we're looking for a vote. Mr. Rutherford,
Yes.
Line,
Yes.
Mike Harmer, yes.
As per our attorney suggested, I'm saying that it's good for the town, good for the people, good for the businesses. So I vote yes.
And I concur with Dale's statements and assume the other commissioners do too, based on their yeses, and that passes. Thank you for your help on that, everyone, and for your presentation there, Mr. Spence and Jimmy's Grill. All right. So we have one more. Which is the Starboard Raw. So let me give you guys the ordinance for Starboard Raw. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what was posted. Take one down, pass it around. Here's the ordinance. Take one down, pass it around. So that is the ordinance we're going to talk about with Starboard Raw. And then I want to make sure you have the package for Starboard Raw. Starboard Raw. Bear with me, folks. There's 3 pieces to Starboard Raw, so we'll tell Jack that on his way back here. So here's 1, 2, 4. Number 1 to Starboard Raw. There's gonna be 2 more coming your way. All right. So that like that. Piece number 2 is coming your way. 2, 3, 4. Take one down, pass it around there, Mr. Cook. So there's an ordinance for Starboard Raw there, Jack, and then there's 3 pieces to the application. Here's the second piece.
The second one.
That's the second one.
Have to keep an eye out on this one.
Yeah, it's, and there's been an addition, actually, I don't have, 4 copies of the picture that was emailed last night. So take one now, pass it around. That's the site plan.
It's
Can it
on
be-
the screen.
It'll be.
Oh, it's on, there you go. Yeah, there's that, there you go. So I could have saved my ink.
Yeah.
That for you?
Save some color.
All right.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, and, that's
This one's
kind of,
got writing on it. I'm not going with that one.
oh, that's okay, you know, that's fine. It's no big deal. All right, so now we are looking at that ordinance and the 3 pieces and basically Starboard Raw. They're doing the same thing. They are, let me read what they're doing just for the official. I don't want to be remiss in any procedural item. So we're going to open a public hearing for an ordinance regarding a conditional use permit and application for restaurant permit of compliance to expand it and the conditional use for Starboard Raw located at 2000 Coastal Highway, Unit 201, Dewey Beach, pursuant to the codes listed in this statement here. And then we'll close the public hearing when we get done that and discuss and possibly vote on a recommendation. All right, so that being said, we got the public hearing open. Is there any discussion amongst the commissioners? Planning and zoning commissioners? I have none. None? All right, see none. Town Hall, Mr. Deeds and Mr.
We
Zolper.
complied with our requests as required by the code, and we understand that they're asking for an increase of 16 outdoor occupancy.
All right, and so Town Hall gave a favorable statement that was just heard. And we look to Mr. Townsend if he has any comments. With none being seen, we'll go to our applicant's attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My notes say good morning, but I'll say good afternoon. My name is Glenn Mandalis. I'm an attorney with Baird Mandalis Brockstead. We have offices at 1413 Savannah Road in Lewis. Represent the Starboard Land Company and Starboard Raw. With me today is Steve Montgomery, affectionately known as Monty around town. I got to say, of all the applications I presented through the years, this is probably the biggest no-brainer that I've ever had to do. This is a very modest request to continue using 4 outdoor tables, as you see on the screen here. They're each 4 tops, so 16 seats, as Mr. Dedes said. We're located on an elevated deck in the front of the building, which is the west side. The outdoor seating has existed now since May of 2020. And that's kind of the neat thing about, if there is a neat thing about the pandemic, the silver lining here is we really got a chance to kind of kick the tires of outdoor dining in the town. So this has been here, we've been able to see it. You know, part of your consideration today under the code in section 185-74A is whether this will be a detriment to the health, welfare, and morals of the town. You know, having this sort of a track record, you don't usually get that kind of advanced courting period. We've had that here. So we know that it's not, in fact, has outdoor dining in general around the town has really enhanced the health and welfare of the community. So as the exhibit shows, and our exhibit shows these 4 tables here, there's a patron area on another one. Can you go, Kate, to the one that shows the patron area? The area we're talking about for patron area is only 133 square feet. Just by kind of comparison, in Rehoboth Beach, there's an automatic allowance of 750 square feet of outdoor dining. It goes to the building official, it gets approved, and there's no hearing like this before a town council or a planning commission. And they've just introduced an ordinance to go to 1,000 square feet of outdoor dining. So all we're talking about here is 133 square feet of patron area.
Mental note, we should work on that.
So there are railings all the way around the deck. There's stairs down to the sidewalk that run along coastal highways. So we're completely on our property, not any encroachments. And as I said, the deck is 133 square feet and it's easily accessed by wait staff. What I wanted to go to, because we've had a lot of conversation about conditions on the other applications. So I want to quickly kind of go through all of the ones that I heard and just to confirm that we're okay with them. So we don't have to have any back and forth. So the first conditions I heard were introduced by Mr. Maskowitz in his email. So we confirm here and now that we are going to comply with section 185-25D D1A1 and D1A3. We also agree that with Mr. Spence, who says these sections A through H from Title IV that are already incorporated in the ordinance are something that we will comply with, and in fact, we're glad they're in the ordinance. Former Mayor Cook went through several conditions: no smoking in the outdoor patron area, no live entertainment in the outdoor patron area, public access will be restricted after 11 p.m. in the outdoor patron area. We have sufficient bathrooms to satisfy the state requirements. We will clean the area at night in addition to the required morning cleaning, and we will continue to observe all prior conditions that are attached to our current conditional use.
That's good, you know, can you write up the ordinance?
Happily, look, there are football games kicking off like right now, so.
No smoking, there's no smoking.
No smoking was the first one.
Okay, speakers.
So speakers are already in, so they weren't on, I have no live entertainment in outdoor patron area. Well, I'm happy to say no outdoor speakers. I think it's already in the, it's in the ordinance. Yeah, the ordinance.
Make sure he gets it all.
It's in the code.
In the
Well,
code.
for, I think when we do our motion, we'll do what we did
Reference.
before. Reference the code plus those 6 conditions.
The speaker requirement is in the 18525 D1A1 or 3, one of those. So we confirm that we comply and will continue to comply with all those conditions, and we're happy to have them as part of our approval, should you approve us. And so without belaboring the point, I'm happy to answer any questions.
None? No. See none? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, looking into the room for anyone who wants to comment. Don't see anyone. Kate, virtually, anybody? No comments, Mom?
Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Muskowitz?
Yeah, I just, because of what happened at town meeting, I just wanted to make sure, Starboard Roar is a great business, and me and my daughter love sitting out on the patio. So just wanted to say that I hope it gets approved, and thank you for doing this hearing for so many hours. The town really appreciates your service.
Well, I'm going back to you. We appreciate you, helping us along. Sometimes you send some emails with some things from past history, which helps out a lot. So thank you. Back to you. Would you like to say anything else, or are you good? Looks like Mr. Muskowitz is done.
That I'm
Right.
done.
Thank you. All right. Any more public?
Monty
virtual?
deserves a break on his legal bills.
All right. Any more, Kate? Nothing else? All right. We're going to close the public hearing. And at this point, we're going to be looking for our discussion with planning and zoning commissioners.
Yeah, this is I think slam dunk, and it's quite nice walking through town and seeing people enjoying a great restaurant. And to me, it's a no brainer.
All right. Great. I have no comments. Dale? Fred or town hall? All right. So we'll close our discussion, and now we're looking for a motion for the ordinance.
I'll make a motion with the 6 items with reference to the code.
All right. Second by Mr. Cook. Any discussion? I have none. I see none. And now we're looking for a vote. Mr. Redford?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mike Harmer, yes.
Again, I think it's great for the town, people in town and the business owners. So, yeah.
And I'll concur with those statements. I assume the other commissioners same way. So we'll look for a motion to adjourn. Motion, second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, aye? Aye. Thank you very much. Great meeting. So, by the way, the next meeting is Friday, October 7th. And you will not be there because I messed Mr. Rutherford up. It's not his fault. He's coaching. So, but it's going to be October 7th, Friday night at 4:30 here for the rest of the applications that were presented before. All right.